Good afternoon, Senate Finance. This is our third meeting for today, and we're about to start bill hearings with 10 bills. So today's Thursday, January 29th, 2026, and this is the bill order. Number one is Senate Bill 253. Senator Hellerman, would you like to come to the table and bring your panel? Then Senate Bill 226. Number three, Senate Bill 46. Number four, Senate Bill 69. Number five is Senate Bill 84. Number six is Senate Bill 43. Number seven is Senate Bill 94. Number eight is Senate Bill 233. Number nine is Senate Bill 234. And number 10 happens to be my bill. I get the pleasure of being last today, Senate Bill 248. So thank you, Senator Hellerman. Welcome, and you're welcome to start whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee. I am Senator Shelley Heddleman. I'm here to represent District 11 in Baltimore County, and I'm very pleased to be here today to present Senate Bill 253, which would enable collective bargaining for supervisory employees of the Baltimore County Public Library System. This is a bill, Senator Kramer, thank you. This is a bill that this committee has seen before. I am very, very happy to tell you that we are all here in support of the bill, and there is no opposition to the bill. So we're thrilled. We're thrilled to have another person, the chair of the board of the library, also be able to testify virtually. So hopefully we have a kumbaya moment. But a number of years ago, this committee enabled Baltimore County public librarians to collectively bargain. They did, and they have, and we have two union members here with me today. We did not allow supervisory employees to bargain. We passed that bill in 2021, and then the state group came and did this for the entire state library system. They included supervisory employees, and because Baltimore County had done it on their own, we were not included in that statewide bill. So we are coming back to include supervisory employees to enable them to be on par with the rest of the state. That's it in a nutshell. Two bargaining units, and I'm just going to stop there because I don't think I need to go any further.
Thank you, Senator. Who else is going to speak?
I will. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the members of the Finance Committee. My name is Nicole Dvorak. I'm a former Baltimore County Public Library staff member and former union executive board member, and I was on the first union contract negotiating team in 2022 on behalf of the hundreds of existing non-supervisory staff at BCPL. I want to thank Senator Hellerman for her continuous support for public library workers and those on this committee who continue to fight for public workers and collective bargaining bills every year. This is actually a very straightforward bill. It's just making sure that Baltimore County library supervisors have the same rights to unionize that all the other public library supervisors in the state already have. Baltimore County library workers, as Senator just said, just weren't covered by prior legislation, so we're just fixing that. In the year 2026, when so many public and unionized workers have seen their rights threatened over the past year, I think we all can agree that Maryland should exist as a place where we continue to honor and respect public workers and ensure their rights to collectively bargain. And so I'm very happy to be here, and thank you so much.
Thank you. We have one more member of your panel virtually. Yara, would you like to address the Senate?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Yara Sheikh, and I serve as chair of the Board of Trustees for the Baltimore County Public Library. I'm here today on behalf of the board in support of Senate Bill 253, which will allow supervisors in our libraries to collectively bargain as other employees currently do. I want to provide a little bit of history on this issue for those who were not around 5 years ago or may not remember. 5 years ago, legislation, as Senator Heddleman mentioned, was introduced to allow Baltimore County Library employees to collectively bargain. At that time, we supported the bill, working closely with the House and Senate sponsors. The bill became a state model. Since the passage of this law, the library and the union have enjoyed significant progress. The union moved towards holding elections and having their first contract in place within months after the passage of the law. They have successfully negotiated 5 contracts, including the latest MOU that was just recently ratified by staff. The board is committed to open communication and ongoing collaboration that will result in few grievances, and when grievances are presented, are addressed appropriately. These are solid indicators that not only is the collaboration between BCPL and the collective bargaining unit moving towards a positive direction, but that BCPL's law is working as intended. BCPL supervisors help maintain a positive work environment where employees are valued and supported, and we support their right to collectively bargain. This legislation would also mean BCPL employees would have the same opportunities as those in other systems due to the statewide collective bargaining law for the others. We urge the committee to vote favorably on Senate Bill 253 and appreciate Senator Heddleman bringing it to the floor today.
Thank you for your testimony. Do I have any questions at all from senators? You did a great job. We don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Senate Bill 226, Maryland Heritage Area Authority, and we will have someone from the department. There we go. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Beidel, and I guess Vice Chair Hayes is still out, but and the members of the committee, thank you for having us here today. I am, for the record, Rebecca Flora, Secretary, Maryland Department of Planning, and testifying here in that role, but I want to also add that I am here as I wear two hats as it relates to this. I'm also chair of the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority. And the authority, just as a reminder, is actually an independent unit of government that is within the executive branch, but it is housed within the Maryland Department of Planning, and the Secretary of Planning is named as chair of that authority. So I've been very active in that authority since I really came to the administration 3 years ago. So I just want to highlight a few items on this. We're going to try to keep it short. Ariane Hofstede is with me also, who is the administrator of the program, and she'll add a little bit of data that I think you'll find useful to you as the Finance Committee. And then we also have someone from Maryland Department of Agriculture with us here today, and we'll try to keep our remarks short. The main thing I really want to point out with this bill is that from June 24 to April of 25, the authority hired a consultant to objectively facilitate an inclusive strategic planning process. I will add, it's only the second time that there's been a strategic planning process done for the authority, and the last one was 2010. But the whole goal was to essentially, through an inclusive process, chart a path forward for the authority at this point in time. The process included voices from, based on Ariane's count and everything that we pulled together, 600 participants in that, representing not only the staff, but also program staff, the authority members of staff from the various agencies represented, along with our various partner stakeholders and the various heritage area directors to put together that 7-year plan that was unanimously adopted by the authority last year. And really, for the most part, this amendment is to create alignment with that strategic plan and to administratively update and correct a few things. The key items that we're going to highlight or that are in the bill, and I'm not going to dive into each of these unless you all have questions. The first one is about the 50% of project funding gaps that are currently in the bill. We would like to repeal that. I will touch a little bit more detail on that one particular one, because with being the Finance Committee, you may have an interest in that. The other change is granting the authority the ability to determine grant caps and corresponding matching requirements for grants as they deem appropriate. What we've learned over the years with market fluctuations, having that wired into the statute is really not serving the program as well as what it could if we have flexibility. And we've mapped out a process as to how that would occur, which we'll go into. We've also proposed in the bill to remove antiquated requirements surrounding state officials developing program statements to support certified heritage areas. Instead, we're requiring those same officials to directly support and assist these areas, and removing the authority from being required to send certain boundary maps to county clerks, which is another antiquated aspect of the statute as it was currently written. We've added the Secretary of Agriculture, Superintendent of State Department of Education, and a member of the public with significant education or experience in natural resource stewardship or climate resiliency to the voting membership of the authority. In particular, the member of the public with those areas of expertise would replace a representative of what is now the defunct Maryland Greenways Commission, which has actually been defunct for quite some time, and we are overdue to make that replacement. So the other thing I just want to highlight is during the strategic planning process is one of the top barriers in accessing grant funds was related to that matching grant requirement. I think rather than go into all of the specifics on that, we can answer questions on it, and I want to let Ariane just give you a little bit more detail about the task force that we formed around this to come to the outcome that was approved by the authority as a better approach that we're recommending through this bill in terms of how we move forward based on the strategic plan and the work that we did over the past year. So Ariane, if you want to pick that up with some of your specifics.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ariane Hofstad, and I am the administrator of the Maryland Heritage Areas Program, which is governed by the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority. I wanted to share that there are only 2 state heritage area programs in the entire country, Maryland and Pennsylvania, and I really believe that ours is the most robust. This is thanks to the unwavering bipartisan support of the General Assembly for the past 30 years. Since its inception in 1996, 13 heritage areas have been designated across the state, and over $79 million in grants have been awarded to hundreds of local organizations within those heritage areas. Those grants have been matched with over $175 million in non-state funds. So this is more than double the return on the state's investment. Funds are used to create capital and non-capital heritage-related tourism experiences. So exhibitions, restoration of historic sites, interpretive trails. These attract visitors and enhance communities and in turn boost our local economies. An economic impact study that was done in 2019 found that these activities support over 30,000 jobs and help generate over $300 million in state and local tax revenue every year. So the work of the authority really plays a central and important role in contributing to the state's economy and vitality. SB 226 will enhance the operational effectiveness and collaborative abilities across state agencies that are represented on the authority. So in particular, the changes that we're proposing to the membership by adding those voting members. And by removing the not to exceed grant funding caps from the statute and allowing the authority to assess and determine as they see fit, the program will be more equipped to manage the changing needs of our grantees. This is particularly important during these difficult times when several of the usual matching sources are being cut from other sources that are out there that our grantees would turn to. Did I hear the timer on my? Okay. So I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk about the.
That's okay. We
Yeah.
can answer questions
Yeah.
if there are any. I think.
Very, very briefly, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Harrison Palmer. I'm the Chief of Staff at the Maryland Department of Agriculture. We did submit written testimony in support of this bill, but we really just want to be here to show our continued support for the Department of Planning and the Maryland Heritage Area Authority. What this bill does in particular interest to us is solidifies the Secretary of Agriculture's position as a voting member, moving from an advisory capacity and now to having full voting authority, but continuing to bring Maryland's rich agricultural history to the forefront as we look at these rural areas where we've got a vested interest in preserving that history. As you'll note, our state seal includes a farmer and a waterman and was an early commitment of the state in recognition of our agricultural heritage. And Senate Bill 226 echoes that nod to Maryland's agricultural history and ensures that the Secretary continues to have a seat at that table. So we respectfully urge a favorable report, and I did promise it would be brief.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have any questions for Senate Bill 226? Seeing no questions, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your time today.
Next, we have Senate Bill 46, and Verna from Senator Simon Ayer's office is going to speak.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Verna Leber, and I am presenting Senate Bill 46 on behalf of Senator Simon Eyre. The senator has worked with the Department of Veterans and Military Families, the Department of Health, the Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors, and other military advocates for this consensus legislation. This bill clarifies the different types of interment at our state veteran cemeteries, as they provide interment in graves or niches in a columbarium for veterans and their families. Unlike the business regulation laws, the state government laws regarding veteran cemeteries were initially written exclusively for grave burials. Therefore, this bill updates the state government article Veteran Cemetery Laws to current standards and terminology. It aligns with the National Cemetery Administration's federal terminology regarding interment, costs, and arrangements. It ensures our veterans and their families know the benefits they are entitled to by using the correct and up-to-date language in our laws. And it also, in a similar manner, revises our laws that deal with unclaimed veterans' remains and their interment in business regulations and health occupations articles. There's no opposition to this bill. In addition to our testifiers, our expert, Russ Ware, Director of Cemetery and Memorial Programs under the Department of Veterans and Military Families, is also here to answer any questions you may have, and I ask for a favorable consideration.
Thank you. Are you Mr. Ware?
Yes, ma'am.
You're welcome to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Director Russ Ware, the Department of Veterans and Military Families of the Cemetery and Memorial Programs. I have no statements. I'm just here to answer any questions, any technical questions that may come up.
We have one virtual witness, David Lutzow, right?
Yep. Madam Chair, can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. My name is David Lutzow. I'm a Senior Master Sergeant, retired United States Air Force, and a Director with Maryland Military Coalition. And our coalition strongly supports this bill and asks for favorable report from this committee. Changes in definitions and terms in Maryland statutes and code have been evolving over the years, and Senate Bill 46 is no exception. A small sample of definition changes are terms like eligible dependent, identifying information, veteran service organizations, record keeping, and so on. These previous changes and the ones in Senate Bill 46 may seem simple and already understood definitions, but how many of us have confused one definition over the definition of the actual communication? When it comes to our veterans, it is crucial that everyone comprehends what is being communicated. For these reasons, Maryland Coalition is favorable for this Senate bill. And with that, I yield back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have any questions for this panel? Seeing no questions, thank you. That ends the hearing for Senate Bill 46. The next bill is Senate Bill 69. Senator Kagan is here. This is the Nonprofit Organizations Navigator Termination Provision. And Senator Kagan, you're bringing up a panel with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to be with you. For the record, Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Back to back today. This is a really quick bill. You all probably remember that last year we created the first in the nation nonprofit navigator. We have more than 41,000 nonprofits in the state of Maryland, and we have ombudsmen for small businesses, for nursing homes, for elder care, for so many different, I think we have 21 of them or something. But for the 41,000 nonprofits in Maryland, we didn't have anyone that they could go to. So they'd call Henry Bogdan, or they'd get frustrated and keep knocking on the door, or they'd call us because they weren't getting paid for their grant or contract, or they didn't know if they were eligible for a particular program. So this one person who was just hired in September is already doing such miraculous work and reaching out, hosting Zooms, educating people, helping them get money. I think it's, more than $350,000 for local nonprofits. She's already been able to release for them. Sorry, I'm breathless. She serves on the Maryland Efficiency in Grant Applications Council, the Mega Council, which is where I was just speaking just now, and is helping us save taxpayer money by increasing customer service and efficiency for our nonprofits. She's created a monthly newsletter. She's already helped 34 nonprofits in 12 counties with grants and has helped 145 nonprofit staffers register for technical training. I don't want to take a lot of your time. What the bill does, last year, this committee kind of wanted to learn a little more, see how the Nonprofit Navigator did, and so there was a sunset that was put on of 2 years. This is simply a brackets bill, taking out the sunset. We think it's an important bill, an important position that we hope continues. There is zero fiscal note for this year, and we really encourage you to pass this. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
And before Henry goes, Courtney Hall has a meeting that he is late for, and he's awesome. If he could speak super briefly, that would be terrific.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Bogdan?
Certainly.
Okay. Courtney, would you like to give your testimony?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify in support of Senate Bill 69. I first learned of this position after having a conversation with Senator Kagan, as we regularly do talk about some of the challenges that we face in the nonprofit community. And I do appreciate all of you who had a chance to and did support this legislation. As Senator Kagan has already mentioned, this is turning out to be a very, very vital position. Often nonprofit organizations have great difficulty navigating the morass of Maryland state government. As effective and as wonderful as it often is, it is a bureaucracy. And often, if you do not have the opportunity to have connections or to be in the know or to just know how certain organizations or agencies connect, it can be very, very difficult. I'll just give a quick anecdote. I've submitted my written testimony. You can read more there. But just a quick anecdote. Doron has been a fantastic partner thus far. As has already been mentioned, not only has she created a newsletter, she's also distributing information about state grants, which is a vital, vital resource that is needed in the nonprofit community. But specifically, we had a wonderful experience with Jessica when she helped us to remove a roadblock, a major roadblock for us. So we were fortunate enough to be granted a legislative bond to do some construction on one of our shelters. Interfaith Works operates 4 shelters in the county, a variety of supportive housing projects, food and clothing distribution, a jobs placement program. And we'd been working with the Department of General Services for months to try to move this along. And it turns out that we had just not been in touch with the right people. After we had a chance to speak with Jessica, at the very next day, she got us in touch with the right person. And within less than a week, something that had been a challenge for us for months, that barrier was suddenly removed. So I fully support this legislation and want to definitely say that having this sunset clause, I think, makes it more difficult for recruitment, and frankly, just doesn't give this position the support and the visibility, frankly, that I believe it needs. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Courtney. You can leave and go to your meeting now.
Thanks, Courtney.
Mr. Bogdan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, the Senator and Courtney. Courtney gave a great example of what it means to have someone inside government who has a connection and effectively a network across state agencies. Her participation on the Mega Council puts her in touch with the representatives from all the other agencies, grant-making entities, major grant-making entities. So she knows who to call, how to direct people. It's a really important function. It didn't make my job go away, but it's going to. We see it expanding, particularly in helping the Mega Council be effective in getting input from nonprofits as moves forward, which it is. And the Mega Council will not only make it easier for nonprofits, it will help state government become much more efficient in administering grants and tracking grants. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Richard Reinhardt joined us.
Yes, Madam Chair, thanks for your patience and apologize for being a few minutes behind schedule today. Good afternoon, members of the committee. It's great to see you all. For the record, Richard Reinhardt with Percy Public Affairs. I just wanted to thank the Senator for bringing this forward. You know, it's hard to believe that this was only a year ago that we were before you all establishing this wonderful program. And I just want to take a moment to share with some of the anecdotal stories and feedback that I've been hearing from some of the clients I represent. I've had the honor for the last 8 years in Annapolis representing nonprofits that are national, such as the National Cryptologic Foundation, do a lot of work in cyber security and workforce development, to the YMCA, to regional organizations all the way out in Cumberland for the Scenic Railroad, to the historic World War II Liberty Ship in Baltimore City. We have representation on working with nonprofits in Prince George's County to help workforce development and entrepreneurship. I can't tell you that the years of working with them where they said, you know, Rich, how can we help navigate, no pun intended, to find grants? Who are the right people that we need to be talking with? And I know you've seen me time and time again every year trying to hound down for funds through B&T and through governor's miscellaneous grants. But this program is essential because it's actually supplementing the work that I do, but more importantly, it's providing an expansive opportunity for all the nonprofits across the state that don't have lobby representation, that don't have the infrastructure in their organizations and their budgets to find and search out for these resources. This is what the Navigator is doing. And I applaud the work that we actually finally saw this happen. It's taken a while to get here, but now that we have it, we should continue the work that it's doing. I've not met the Navigator. I've heard some wonderful things. Allow her to continue doing the wonderful things she's doing. I encourage you all to look at the Navigator website. It is an incredible hub of information for training, resources, and it literally brings a suppository of all of the repository, I should say. Freudian slip there. A repository of all of the wonderful federal, state, and local grants that are available. With that, I humbly support this bill and appreciate the favorable report.
Thank you, Richard. I have a couple of questions. Let's start with Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Kagan, maybe for you, since Mr. Hall is not with us right now. The bill passed last year, and it had a 2-year or 2.5-year sunset on it. I don't recall the bill itself. Was this your bill, or were you involved? Why did we put because we're coming back a little bit early. I mean, we could come back next legislative session in 2027 and repeal it then, but why are we coming back the very next year to repeal the sunset?
So there's something about planning and long-term retention of our employees.
Right.
Our current navigator, and this is not just about that, but she doesn't even get health insurance. She's contractual. So there's a respect. It may be hard to recruit and retain a professional person. It's not the way we treat our state employees.
Right, but there was agreement last year that a 2-year sunset was adequate.
There was agreement. This bill passed on sine die, and at some point, perfect is the enemy of the good, and half a loaf is better than no loaf, and I was delighted to be able to move forward with hiring a nonprofit
And again,
navigator.
this is no reflection of the individual doing the job. I'm just wondering that, usually on a sunset will come in the year that it's sunsetting, but understand, sounds like she's doing a great job.
She is.
Mr. Bogdan, question for you. Unfortunately, nonprofits have been in the news a lot this summer, as you are aware. And there's a recent investigation that found that dozens of nonprofits in Baltimore have received state and city grants, but have not been in good standing. Is your organization or somebody, maybe within this Navigator, I see the responsibilities of the Navigators to help with grant funding, but given this news, shouldn't the Navigator also, or should somebody also be helping to make sure that these nonprofits stay in good standing and are compliant with IRS requirements?
Obviously, agencies making grants should be looking at those factors. I mean, I can't speak for the city of Baltimore. I used to speak for the city of Baltimore down here, but I don't now. To my knowledge, I don't know of any state agency off the top of my head that doesn't look at these factors routinely. They ask people to certify it. Asking them to go further and audit, so you have to check different state websites to find, if they're in good standing with the Secretary of State. But if they affirm this, and they usually do this by affidavit, that they've met these requirements.
If I could add on, please, Senator Hershey. That's not what this bill is.
I understand.
Okay, this is about one position in our enormous state government that is serving more than 41,000 state nonprofit organizations in our state. These are our food pantries, our homeless shelters, our battered women's shelters, our literacy councils, our children's theaters. This is just about helping them find their way through state government, have opportunities to apply for grants, federal, state, local, or private grants, and giving feedback.
But would you agree that it's important for them to stay in compliance?
Of course that is, but that's not what this bill is about.
No, my question was, obviously the bill is before us. We can do more than just, change the sunset on it. We could add something here. Item number 5 could be to make sure that this navigator helps nonprofits stay within compliance so they continue to get the grants that they have applied for.
Obviously, Senator Hershey, the bill is in the committee's ownership, and it's up to you what you come up with. I would like to suggest that if that's something you want to do, that I'd love to have a conversation with you, and you could sponsor your own legislation. This is simply a brackets bill for one position.
I understand
for one hardworking person.
I understand your position on it,
Thank
but
you.
at the same time, like I said, we want to make sure that these.
Thank you. We're good.
Okay, no, I
Thank you.
wasn't finished. I was just continuing, but I didn't know if you were talking to get Mr. Bogdan to say something else. No, okay.
Good.
Well, again, I do agree with you that it is in the Senate Finance possession, and I do think that it's important with a lot of the negative news that has came out about the nonprofits and the investigations that have come on, that we are finding ways to be much more transparent to see if these organizations, one, are staying in compliance, but also doing the work and running the programs that they're supposed to be doing. And when it's not just one or two, but it's 23 and dozens of them that have been found out. And if you don't like the investigation, I'm sure you can respond back to that. But the fact of the matter is it's out there. And the fact of the matter is we've all talked about, many from both sides of the aisle have talked about accountability this year. And this is one of the issues as we're talking about our budget situation, that it's, I think it's important for taxpayers to recognize that money and grants that are being given out to nonprofits are being used for what they're called for. I was simply saying maybe a navigator could help nonprofits stay in compliance. And we can certainly talk more about it, but I just wanted to make sure that's what I was concerned
Thank you,
about.
Senator Hershey.
Thank you very much, too.
You've made your case. I just want to mention that one of the many nonprofits that has been helped has served your jurisdiction, your
appreciate that.
county.
That's great.
A hospice organization that serves Queen Anne's, Caroline, and Kent is one of the jurisdictions,
And as
one of
I
the
said,
nonprofits.
and hopefully they're in compliance and they can continue to
I
get
hope
grants
so,
and
too.
continue to do the
hope
good
so,
work
too.
that they do in Queen Anne's
Thank you.
County, because I greatly
And I should
appreciate the work
mention,
that they
in
do.
these challenging times, there is even more of a burden on our nonprofit organizations as people have lost their jobs, as DOGE has done its work, and others are downsizing. There is more reliance on our nonprofits, and they're under stress and need our support.
And I would agree, and there's certainly more of a burden on Maryland taxpayers right now, too, as we're going through the budget deficits that we're at. And I think that they deserve to recognize and understand that money is going to the appropriate causes. So I appreciate that we're on the same page with that.
This is a simple brackets bill.
Brackets bill.
Senator Washington.
Well, I have a question about that bracket. Thank you, Madam Chair, and great to see you, Senator. I did have the same question about us being really early about removing these brackets so far, repealing the sunset. I love nonprofits. I've benefited from nonprofits and understand them. I know this committee had some angst with this bill last year, which is probably why it passed on the last day of session. And part of that angst was to ensure that this navigator wasn't helping these very large organizations, nonprofits that don't need the help, that already are taking up all the money that these other nonprofits need. And so, I'm looking at the list of organizations. Well, it doesn't have a list of organizations according to the Department of Commerce. They just have a list of organizations within different localities. Are we aware about these I think it was about 34 direct support appointments and 11, 5, 2, 1. It's about, let's just say 20 to 30 different aid organizations. Do we know how much those organizations that benefited from this or came in contact with it, outside of the Maryland State Arts Council 145 number? I don't, that number's, I'm talking about just the nonprofits themselves where there was direct supports. What was their annual income?
Thank you, Senator Washington, and I'm glad you asked the question because there was a fear that some of our multi-million-dollar nonprofits, our big hospitals, our big community colleges or something would take advantage of this one little person within the Department of Commerce. When you're a big multi-million-dollar nonprofit, you've got lawyers, you've got grant writers, you've got consultants. You are not going to bother a small, unbenefited, short-term contractual person in the Department of Commerce. So let me just, if I could, Senator Washington, I just want to give a couple examples. There was in Howard County, there was a nonprofit that had one employee providing warm meals and support for the homeless and seniors, many with dietary restrictions. She also has already helped a Harford County nonprofit advocating for heart-safe schools with automatic, electronic defibrillators and CPR training. A community theater in St. Mary's County. I already talked about the hospice, Senator Hershey, an organization in the Baltimore metropolitan area providing reentry support systems. These are all really small nonprofits providing support for the community, and they need some guidance because they don't have the staff, they don't have the funding.
I don't see the Maryland Department of Commerce. They did send a letter of information only.
Yes.
And I wondered if they could at some point speak to this and give us the background on these of these organizations that were assisted. Like I said, I work for nonprofits. I currently work for one. I love the nonprofit community. I want to see them grow, but I want to see them have access to this. And our primary angst with this bill was that it was going to go to these multi-million-dollar folks. And it's not true that a $50 million or $25 million nonprofit is not going to use that resource. I've worked for them, and we've looked for every ounce and every bit of place where we can go to find resources, because that's your job as a nonprofit to do that.
Sure.
No matter where it's at. So
Sure.
to say that is just it's just not true for all nonprofits.
Senator Washington, I'm not suggesting that a large nonprofit wouldn't come to the state looking for funding. That wasn't what I said.
We would also go to that individual to help for assistance as well. I've seen it.
She doesn't advocate for grants. She will read a draft grant application. She gives feedback. And if there's a grant or contract that hasn't been paid yet, she helps contact that agency to make sure that the paperwork is being done. She's not there as specifically advocating for any particular grant or any particular organization. She's a resource. She's an ombudsperson.
I'm sure she's done a fantastic job.
She really is. Thank you.
I would love to extend her time here in the state. I guess my question is, if you can give us the breakdown of these organizations that are benefiting from this, so we can ensure that our angst wasn't true, that these folks are not multi-billion-dollar agencies, and if not, then perfect. Then
Thank you, Senator Washington. I can suggest that she contact you.
I would like to hear from the Department of Commerce.
I think you'll be impressed. That'd be great. Thank you for your interest.
Of course.
Senator Reedy?
And thank you. I know we've had a lot of discussion about this, and we all love our nonprofits. We do. I mean, there's ones in my community do great work. There's been a lot in the news recently about nonprofits that do business with the state. It's not about this particular person who I'm sure is helping people. I'm quite sure. If someone, because recent reports about, there was this report the other day about a nonprofit in Maryland that's gotten over $60 million in taxpayer dollars since 2022, but has not completed a required audit of its services. That is not the fault of the ombudsman by any means. But if a nonprofit comes to the ombudsman, can they come to them and say, we need a little help here. We're getting this audit. Could they help them not do the audit? Can they help them understand it? Is that something else that this nonprofit ombudsman would be able to do?
I would be surprised if she saw that was within her bandwidth or her time capacity. This is one person trying to serve any of the 41,000 plus nonprofits in the state of Maryland.
I guess my question is if a nonprofit, because there's a bunch of these that are getting reported all the time, that they get money from a jurisdiction or from the state or both, and they have these audits, it sounds like there's confusion by people who are getting money from the state. So if they came, the ombudsman is maybe able to point them who they should talk to in state government?
I'm glad you just sparked something for me, Senator Reedy. Thank you. There was one of our colleagues who reached out to me and asked whether I knew of an affordable lawyer who could help a nonprofit. And it wasn't about an audit. It was just to make sure that they're in compliance and filling out whatever forms. And I contacted our nonprofit navigator, and she asked me to connect them because she knows someone, a lawyer, or knows some lawyers who are willing to do pro bono work to support small nonprofits. And so I was able to make a match for them, save the nonprofit some money, make sure that they got legal guidance from someone with expertise and a passion for supporting.
It sounds like the answer to my question is yes, that she might be able to point somebody in the right direction.
For legal counsel, yeah, pointing in the right direction. She might have a database that she's compiling. She's still new. She's only been there 4 months, 4.5 months. So hypothetically, if a nonprofit you were associated with needed a lawyer or an accountant, maybe she could provide a resource. But she's not fixing or doing or engaged with the work itself.
I'm just trying to see if we can find some help because there's been a lot of nonprofit, a lot of reporting, and I don't think it's fair because I think a lot of nonprofits are. I don't want it to be fair. We want them to be able to get into compliance.
Yes,
and so
totally.
that's good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Reedy.
No other
Rackets.
questions, Senator Kagan.
Rackets.
Thank you. Mr. Bogdan and Richard, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all.
Thank you, members.
Sometimes the easiest bills have the most questions. Next, we have Senate Bill 84, State Personnel Collective Bargaining, Graduate Assistance. We have Senator Kramer presenting, Donna Edwards, and Casper Provala. So this is a bill that is a reintroduction, so we have 2 proponents and 2 opponents, and the sponsor of the bill. So thank you.
And there's that. I think we're all settled in here. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Ben Kramer, proud to be introducing, along with the good Senator Lamb, Senate Bill 84, which colleagues should be familiar. And we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about why it is we need this bill. Colleagues, graduates at the University of Maryland play a central and indispensable role in the university's teaching, research, and public mission as teaching assistants, research assistants, and graduate assistants. They instruct undergraduates, conduct externally funded research, publish scholarly work, and help sustain the university system's standing as a leading public research institution. Despite these responsibilities, Maryland law and the university system itself deny graduate assistants the opportunity to engage in collective bargaining should they choose to do so. Colleagues, graduate students at UMD should be given the right, not the mandate, the right to collectively bargain consistent with practices at all peer institutions in the Big Ten Conference, with the exception of but one. Graduate assistants are both students and workers. While their academic training is central to their role, their labor is essential to the university's daily operations and long-term success. Teaching, grading coursework, managing laboratories, conducting grant-funded research, and mentoring undergraduates are forms of work that create tangible value for the institution. Granting the opportunity to bargain collectively simply recognizes this reality and brings transparency and fairness to the relationship. Collective bargaining is fundamentally about choice, allowing graduate students to decide for themselves through a democratic process whether to organize and bargain collectively respects their autonomy and voices. Granting this right does not require the formation of a union. It merely ensures that graduate workers are not legally barred from exercising the same labor rights available to many of their peers nationwide. Contrary to concerns, collective bargaining strengthens rather than undermines the academic mission, which we will hear from our friends at the university system. It separates employment negotiations from academic evaluation, protecting the faculty-student relationships. It provides clear grievance procedures that reduce pressure on the advisors of our graduate assistants, pardon me, and it promotes equity and consistency across departments rather than reliance on individual goodwill. Faculty mentors remain mentors, and labor issues are handled collectively and professionally. Colleagues, all of the Big Ten universities, with the exception of Ohio State and our embarrassment, the University of Maryland, allow graduate assistants to unionize and bargain collectively without doing harm to research productivity, academic freedom, or mentoring relationships. Collective bargaining is compatible with academic excellence. It improves recruitment, retention, and diversity, and it provides stability and transparency for both students and administrators. Maryland's current model leaves graduate assistants behind the prevailing norms in higher education. Granting collective bargaining rights does not diminish the university's academic mission. It modernizes it. It aligns Maryland with peer institutions and ensures fairness, transparency, and accountability for those who make the university function every day. That's what our graduate assistants do. They make the university function every day. So the predictable and, quite frankly, laughable opposition from the university is going to center on the following, as it does each and every year that our university system comes in to oppose these rights. It starts with this mentor-mentee relationship, and collective bargaining will somehow change that. Colleague, mentor-mentee relationships are voluntary, individualized, and academic. They are not created by statute. They are not enforceable under labor law or designed to resolve employment disputes. Mentors cannot negotiate compensation, benefits, or system-wide working conditions. Mentorship quality varies widely and is not a substitute for uniform workplace protections. Legislatures do not rely on informal relationships to protect workers in any other sector of public employment. Next, we're going to hear from our university system that they provide what they refer to as meet and confer. Meet and confer is what they say is all they need to work through any concerns that our graduate assistants may have. Colleagues, meet and confer is discretionary, and it is certainly not collective bargaining. Meet and confer processes lack the core elements that the legislature has historically required for meaningful labor relations. There is no duty to reach an agreement with meet and confer. There are no binding contracts with meet and confer. There is no neutral dispute resolution with meet and confer. And there is no continuity across administrations, once again, with meet and confer. The bottom line is this model of meet and confer offers no enforceable rights and no accountability, only the option, if they permit it at the university system, to listen. The other point that the university will come up and state is why we can't have collective bargaining for these hard-working employees is that they're not employees, they're students. Colleagues, if it walks like that duck and it quacks like that duck, let me tell you, it is that duck, and they are, in fact, employees. Graduate assistants are paid by the university, assigned duties, supervised, evaluated, and disciplined. They teach classes, grade, conduct grant-funded research, and staff labs that generate revenue and prestige for the institution. The fact of the matter is they are quite simply employees, and they need to be treated and respected as employees, not children. Colleagues, when the University of Maryland left the ACC to join the Big Ten, the decision to do so reflected more than athletics or revenue. It signaled how the University of Maryland saw itself as a flagship, research-intensive public university with a national and cosmopolitan orientation shaped by its proximity to Washington, D.C., and Maryland increasingly aligned with the Big Ten's modern public university peer group rather than the more regionally southern identity of the ACC. That alignment carries expectations beyond sports. Big Ten universities share norms around governance, labor relations, and the treatment of graduate assistants as employees with collective bargaining rights. If Maryland seeks to define itself as a Big Ten institution in identity and stature, it should also align its labor practices with Big Ten norms, including granting our graduate assistants the right to collectively bargain if they choose. Colleagues, for more than a century, the divide between northern and southern states on worker treatment has reflected fundamentally different governing choices. Northern and Midwestern states, where the Big Ten was born, have built modern labor systems around collective bargaining, worker voices, and enforceable rights as tools for economic stability and institutional legitimacy. In those states, unions were not viewed as threats to authority, but as mechanisms to manage large, complex public institutions fairly and predictably. Southern states, by contrast, as exist in the ACC, deliberately pursued an opposite model. Through right-to-work laws, limits on public sector bargaining, and resistance to unions, they sought to attract investment by keeping labor cheap and fragmented and dependent on employer discretion. That approach was not accidental. It was a conscious policy choice, and it continues to shape how workers are treated across much of the South today. And it is interesting to note, colleagues, that in the entire ACC, which the University of Maryland chose to leave for the Big Ten, there is not one university that offers its graduate assistants the opportunity to bargain collectively. That's where the University of Maryland continues to wallow today. Colleagues, if Maryland wants to be Big Ten in name, reputation, and peer alignment, it must also be Big Ten in practice. And that includes recognizing the right of graduate assistants to collectively bargain. Big Ten prestige deserves Big Ten labor standards. Colleagues, as long as this university system chooses to whistle Dixie and march in lockstep with the states of the Deep South, I would proffer that our proud testudo, as the mascot, be modified to be wearing an entirely white suit with a black string tie, white mustache, and beard, and our school motto be, "Welcome to the University of Maryland," where the home is Southern sweet tea and Southern inequality. That's what the impression is that we are leaving our students and our public here in the great state of Maryland. We are not a Southern state, and it's time to embrace the mission of the Big Ten and the implications to ensure we are treating the workers with dignity. And with that, Madam Chair, I thank you very much.
Senator, your panel can go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. I'm Donna Edwards. I'm president of the Maryland State and DC AFL-CIO. We have over 700 affiliated unions in the Maryland State and DC. And I want to thank the sponsor. I think he's done an excellent job and a very thorough job, not only historically, but in naming this for what it is. Grad assistants are workers. It has been acclaimed by the NLRB. It is widely accepted across the whole country that they are workers. They are not just students. The university has claimed in the past also that it has tight budgets and that this would, defer some costs and they would lose some grants. Well, I want to say that it is the work of these workers that make these grants competitive and successful, and the ability of all of our universities and schools to be able to draw in the grants because of the success and work of our grad workers. So workers don't come together to negotiate with management to negotiate themselves out of work. We come together to work with management to make it stronger, to make it more successful, and therefore making the work that we do more valuable. No one goes into a bargaining session to bargain themselves out of work. That is not what we do. Over the most recent previous years, USM has spent millions of dollars to prevent workers in an attempt to delay the collective bargaining rights of workers that already have it on our college campuses. So we would ask that you give strong consideration. These are workers. It is time that they give the exact same right of other workers to enable them to vote for a union if that is what they want to do. And the only obstacle is this committee and our legislators from passing and enabling legislation and law that allows them to do so. Thank you, and I urge a favorable report.
Thank you. And Casper?
Good afternoon. My name is Casper Popova. I'm a second-year grad worker at the University of Maryland, where I've worked as both a teaching and a research assistant. I'm here with the Graduate Labor Union Campaign, and our unit of 4,000 grad workers has had a majority of card signers since spring 2024, and I urge you to vote yes on this bill. This summer, the university failed to pay over 100 graduate workers, including myself, on time. Our paychecks were delayed for 2 to 4 weeks. For an average grad worker making about $2,400 a month, this delay is serious. It is rent, it is food, it is childcare, and this is not a new problem. Every summer, the university fails to pay grad workers on time. Right now, we have no enforceable recourse for these delayed paychecks. Provost Rice and Dean Roth, who said that grads with pay issues should come to meet with them directly, have refused to meet with us. By having collective bargaining, we would have a framework for addressing workplace concerns like the pay delays, harassment and discrimination, and changes to our contracts. Denying collective bargaining is hurting not just grad workers, but the university as well. First, at other universities, graduate labor unions have been partners in fighting back against the funding cuts inflicted by the federal administration. For example, the union at the University of California sued the administration over canceling NIH grants and won. Last fall, the UMD Grad Worker Union Campaign co-hosted a town hall on fighting science funding cuts, attended by Senator Alsobrooks and Comptroller Learmonth. We want to be partners, but denying collective bargaining makes it harder to fight for funding for our work. Second, the union situation here discourages potential grads. I have personally spoken to prospective graduate workers who reject UMD offers in part due to its union situation because they don't feel that they will be treated fairly here compared to our peer institutions. This bill does not force the university to raise our paychecks. This bill obligates that when graduate workers have issues, the university is obligated to work with us to solve those issues. In shared governance, the university is promising to listen and is failing to deliver on our largest issues, which is why we're calling for collective bargaining.
Thank you for your testimony. I see a question from Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the sponsor, you know, I usually enjoy hearing your explanations of the legislation that you file and why it's important. You had me going until we started attacking a whole region of the country. I think it's really interesting that as of late 2025, the SEC, you were throwing shade at the ACC, but the SEC schools have seen a 91% increase in students from northeastern states over the last 10 years. Southern growth, South Carolina in 10 years is up 90% in enrollment. Tennessee is 36%. Alabama, one of my personal favorite, University of Alabama, is up about the same. And the number one thing that people are looking for is cost and value. And I think a university system does not exist as an employment center. First and foremost, it is an employment center, but you have to look at what are we providing and the value we're getting. And the value ultimately is first of all, how many students can we bring in the door? Can we keep the cost at a place where they're getting quality education, but also it's affordable and we can attract people. And so the quality of the education that they get from the educators and the graduate assistants is a part of that, but it has to all be factored in. We're losing out. Maryland and a lot of northeastern schools are stagnant in growth, going up a tiny bit maybe as a percentage, but basically stagnant, much like our state's economy with people leaving, with people who make jobs, create jobs and make money leaving, which we see in the Comptroller's report. So I don't know if you could just comment on the context of that. This is not something we're making in a vacuum, this decision. I just throw that to you as the schools that you're saying are going to put on their white linen seersucker are the ones who are making out like bandits with students coming. They're not pocketing the money. The students are coming down. So I don't know if you can comment on that.
Well, I would proffer to you that one of the main reasons that growth in the South, step outside on the sidewalks today and take a look at what they face in the North.
We shouldn't add more problems on top of that.
So I can assure you that enjoying that southern climate is certainly one reason. Now, the University of Maryland made the decision that it wanted to align itself with the Big Ten universities. One of those reasons was that it envisioned itself being more in step and in tune with these major research universities, not some of the small regional universities of the South. Now, in making that decision, the University of Maryland had to realize trying to keep one foot in the Deep South and the ACC with regard to labor relationships, and then try to market itself as something other than that as a member of the Big Ten is not going to be a formula for success. The fact of the matter is, if the University of Maryland wants to play in the Big Ten Conference, a decision that cost a good deal of money, by the way, to do, if that's the decision, then the university has every responsibility and obligation to step up to the plate and recognize that it comes with responsibilities to the workers who make the university system function. It's not the Board of Regents that parents send their children to the University of Maryland. It's because of the hard-working graduate assistants and the faculty that parents send their children there. And if the University of Maryland wants to be able to compete, recruit and retain the best graduate assistants, then we have to compete with the Big Ten. And the fact of the matter is, these major Big Ten universities are, in fact, in the forefront in the nation of our universities in research. And that's why students go to these universities, and they want to be part of that product that is being offered, but we are selling short. And by the way, when you refer to somehow costs, well, first of all, most of the Big Ten are located in areas with higher costs of living. Certainly, the University of Maryland is. College Park, with its location to the District of Columbia and major employment centers, very high cost of living. And those are factors that do play into recruitment and retention, because these hard-working individuals have to keep a roof over their head while they're keeping the trains running on schedule at the university. So there are a lot of factors that are in play. The fact of the matter is, somehow, every Big Ten university is doing just fine and thriving. At the same time, they're treating their workers with dignity and respect, which our university system is not doing.
Well, it sounds like they're not thriving because they're not gaining the kind of students that they're in the South. And I think it's, I'll leave it with this, for me, small regional schools, I think Georgia Tech, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Vanderbilt, those are somehow not major research universities, University of Virginia, Charlottesville. I think they're managing just fine. So I'm not sure this is necessarily the right policy, but I always appreciate hearing your point of view and your passion for the subject.
And I thank you as well.
Senator Hershey.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Pavov, right? Is that correct? I think you're the only one mentioned. Are you currently a graduate assistant?
Yes.
Okay. I've heard a couple different definitions, so I'm going to ask the person that actually is a graduate assistant. What is a graduate assistant?
A graduate assistant is somebody who is working as either a teaching or a research assistant for the university.
Working as a teaching or graduate or
Teaching or research.
Teaching or research.
I have done both.
Okay, great. In order to be a graduate assistant, do you need to be pursuing a master's or doctorate degree?
So the I will explain it in this manner. So, yes, in order to be a graduate assistant, of course, you have to be in graduate school, a master's or a PhD program. The way that it works at every university in the country is that typically the PhD students are the ones who are prioritized for the teaching and research assistantships, and those are deprioritized for master students.
Okay, so if I get it correctly, you mentioned graduate assistants were workers, but then you followed that up by saying a graduate assistant must be a student, correct?
So the way that PhDs work is that we are, how should I put this? We are, like, I will say it in terms of how I view it. Our vocation is research. Our job is to do research. And research is not something that you learn how to do in a class. We take classes in order to earn our degrees, but my degree is to become a researcher. And so what a PhD is to myself and many of my colleagues is that we are coming to the university for a job offer, a teaching or a research assistantship. For part of our time while we are at the university, we take classes in order to earn that degree. And the remainder of that time, and the majority of that time, we spend doing our research to earn that PhD.
Right, and that research is going after the ultimate goal that you're trying to do while you're at the university, and that's to get that PhD degree, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is a reflection of my work as a researcher.
Yeah, I understand that. When we talk about collective bargaining rights, let's say the bill were to pass and graduate assistants like yourself were able to now collectively bargain. What do you think are the essential requests that you would go after or require as a graduate assistant?
The major ask that we would, that I would prioritize, which is something that I mentioned earlier, is to have job stability in our contracts. Because right now, the university, the contracts or the assistantship offers that it gives to us, those are contracts the university is able to change unilaterally. We have had instances in the past where, for example, in the physics department at the University of Maryland, initially the graduate workers there were under a 12-month assistant contract, but the university unilaterally changed it to a 9.5-month contract, which we estimate loses those workers about a month's salary per year. And other, across the university, graduate workers have been pushed to graduate sooner because the funding to complete their degrees does not exist, or has been lessened by cuts by the federal administration. And we are concerned that this is impacting the quality of our research, the quality, the ability for people to complete their degrees, and the money that we make overall in a year, which sustains us. And critically, the problem is that the university is able to make those changes without consulting us. There are a number of other issues that we care about, and I would urge you to look at the written testimony for this bill that talks about things like the issues with the pay delays, issues with overtime and workloads, the lack of third-party mediation for harassment and discrimination, and many other issues that are written in the written testimony.
Okay, so you'd like to see consistency in your pay to make sure that it's equivalent to what the agreement is that you made when you initially took that position as a graduate assistant, right?
Yes, I would like to be able to have a process with which I can work with the university to make sure that those issues are resolved.
Do graduate assistants get partial or full tuition reimbursement?
As a PhD, as part of our PhD offer, graduate workers receive tuition remission for the classes that we are required to take as a part of our degree. Again, classes are only something that we take for part of our degrees as a PhD, and it is not truly what earns us the PhD. It is the research that we do.
understanding that, but obviously there is a tuition to be in graduate school, and the university seems to be covering those costs or reimbursing those costs. My question would be, are there any out-of-pocket expenses for you to have to put out in order to pursue that degree with respect to tuition to the university?
With respect to the tuition directly, no. I do pay fees every semester for attending the university.
Right.
But the tuition is reimbursed
Okay.
Either by the university or by grants for some
All right, and that's obviously, that has a lot of value to it, right? I mean, you would agree that the university system covering the tuition cost has value to it as you're pursuing your PhD degree.
I would say that the university, in providing tuition reimbursement for PhD students, does exactly what every other university across the country does.
Big Ten, Southeast Conference, ACC, all of those areas? Good.
Yes.
Okay.
I would encourage you to look into how PhD positions work. We are reimbursed for our classes because we work for the university.
I understand. But, I mean, again, just to get this clear, this is your choice, right, to pursue a PhD degree, right?
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned that there were a number of GAs that were rejecting offers from the university.
Correct.
Does that mean that the university has an abundance of GAs, that they're able to put out offers that individuals are not willing to accept?
I think that would be a question for the university officials. I do not make the hiring decisions here.
Right.
I would, from my understanding, professors always want to hire people to do research for them. And how many people they can hire depends on how much funding they have.
Okay, so there is something that, and a lot of the research professors do rely on grants and outside sources to come in and essentially, fund their work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a certain budget, I would assume, that they could use to hire a number of GAs like yourself that are pursuing their degree and help them with their research, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if that's really the case and you're making different, and essentially professors are making different decisions or departments are making different decisions based on their funding that's being allocated to them, shouldn't they be the sole decision maker of how much they can pay GAs and how many GAs they can get as a result of the funding that they have coming in?
I think that would be an issue that causes unequal pay across workers.
Correct.
Across the university, we already have unequal pay levels between departments, depending on how well departments are funded. If it also came down to how much funding professors had, it would be extremely unfair for the colleague who sits in the room across from me, who does just as much work for me, to be perhaps paid less because they don't have the same funding.
What about the colleague that sits across from you that does a whole lot more work and gets paid the same as the colleague that sits across from you and does very little work?
I think that the reimbursement, the pay that we are given for our research depends on the quality of research. If that person is able to produce the same quality of research with less work, good for them. They should be paid what they are worth.
What's their worth, right, in the product that they produce. So, well, thank you very much for your testimony, your comments, and responses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Mounts.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for Mrs. Brazil. I was doing some online searching, and I see that the issue of classifying PAs as employees has been legalized and or been legitimized or delegitimized to the National Labor Relations Board. And I guess there's a case right now. I guess 2000 was when this started, and it's gone back and forth. And right now they can be designated as employees, but I guess there's a case pending right now, and if that were to change under the current National Labor Relations Board, and this bill were in place, how does that work?
It would mean that Maryland has, stepped forward and recognized that a worker is a worker and that they are workers. And the rest of the Big Ten would also maintain their collective bargaining agreements with the grad workers.
So the collective bargaining agreements would stay in place?
Yes. Because some of them happened before. It was ruled in 21, it was ruled in 22, it was ruled in 23 that they are workers. So yes, there's another appeal.
Okay. And then the Big Ten, I mean, I know Ohio State and Indiana don't have a collective bargaining. Do you know the breakdown of the number of schools
Yes,
in the Big Ten?
you have it attached to my testimony.
Okay, great.
You
I'll
have
take
the
a look at
grid.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lamb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few quick questions here. I know my colleague from the other side of the committee had talked about, I guess instances where the National Labor Relations Board could rule that these are rightfully graduate workers. I draw kind of a line to, there's a lot of fanfare to join the Big Ten, obviously with College Park and their basketball program. They are number 3 in the country in the amount that they pay their students on the basketball team, and that's certainly a lot of money. It's interesting because while they are, they're studying, they actually have been ruled by the courts to be workers, right? And so the pay that they receive, in addition to scholarships that they receive, they're actually being paid as workers, and that was upheld by the courts.
Correct.
Okay. And then this is a question for Mr. Popova. You reference a lot of the research work that's being done, and it's obviously critical to an institution like this. For many faculty members, they may have anywhere from 1, 2 to maybe 10 graduate workers working within either their labs or they're supporting their classes that are being taught by extension of the faculty there, right? The graduate workers may be teaching assistants in courses, they may be precepting discussion sessions, et cetera, et cetera. That could not happen without the graduate workers being present, right? So they're not just there as extensions of the faculty, but they're actually there doing the substantive work that would allow these core functions of the college to be able to take place.
Yes, I agree. TAs are, teaching assistants are critical in getting classes to run. That is not something that professors can do on their own, and teaching assistants are critical in not only helping the class run, but actually making sure that students understand concepts in the additional work that they do in the office hours that they hold with students and grading and giving feedback.
And they're oftentimes doing that independently. It's not like there's a faculty member standing over their shoulder as they're teaching a course or as they're grading a paper.
Correct.
These are workers that are doing their own independent work and work product to be able to accomplish that and get that done for the university.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I don't see any other questions. Thank you to this panel for your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have 2 opponents, of course, Sherry Roxas and Dr. Mark Garrison. Welcome back, Sherry.
Thanks. Good to see you. Do you want to go first? You go first.
There you
go. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Beidel, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to offer testimony on Senate Bill 84. My name is Sherry Rojas. I'm the Senior Director of Labor for the USMO. With some 7,000 GAs and postdocs across the system, expanding collective bargaining has the potential to nearly double our current number of represented workers. Such a shift will increase costs through additional labor staff, external costs, and contract implementation costs. As a public system, these significant additional costs will require more state funding, increases in tuition, and/or cuts. And many GAs are paid with soft money, funded through grants with terms over which the USM has limited or no control. We face challenges already at both the federal and state levels, which will only be compounded with passage of this legislation and other labor bills. The structured process to elect a rep doesn't make sense for a temporary student population. Assistantships last for maybe 2 years, yet signatures collected on union cards are valid for 18 months. The students who elect an exclusive rep will no longer be here by the time a new contract is negotiated. They'll have moved on into their careers. And with 3-year effective dates, terms negotiated by one group of students will apply to incoming groups not involved in that negotiating process, but they'll be bound by the terms of that MOU. Our officials have already legislated important anti-discrimination and anti-retaliation laws. Thank you. We've also worked with our student government leaders to update the meet and confer policy just recently. Our USM institutions have already established policies to ensure the protection and fair treatment of students, including processes to address academic matters, intimidating treatment, or illegal conduct. But to fully address such concerns, students must avail themselves of the existing processes. I do want to respond to a few of the comments that were made previously and note that pursuant to CUBA HR, only 15% of graduate assistants have collective bargaining rights nationally at public institutions, and that drops to 6% when you add in private institutions. For these reasons, we'd ask for an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Yes. My name is Mark Garrison. I'm the Dean of the School of Graduate Studies at Morgan State University, and I'm here to support the unfavorable view of the bill as provided by President Wilson in a written statement. So I wish to thank the chair and the vice chair and the members of the committee for this opportunity. I do want to emphasize that we are not opposed to collective bargaining. What I want to emphasize is what is going on for us here is the opposition to this bill. And following the questioning that we heard just a few minutes ago, it appears to me that the body is not very familiar with the work and style and activity of graduate assistants. First and foremost, you must be enrolled in a graduate degree program to be a graduate assistant. This is a definition from IRS and other federal agencies. But what I really want to pick on in this process, while I agree with everything that's been said already, is a concern about the extraordinarily imprecise and vague inclusion in the definition, graduate assistant, in the bill of comparable positions, fellows, and postdoctoral interns. In my 20-plus years of engagement in graduate education, I do not recall having heard the term postdoctoral intern as a form of employment or a regular engagement. I've held leadership roles in regional, national, international graduate school organizations, and the term has never come up. In 1975, the NSF and the NIH separated the class of postdoctoral fellows, fellowship awardees, from the broader category of doctorally qualified non-faculty researchers, who, by the way, are not eligible for unions. Postdocs are temporary, full-time employees who engage in the same research, teaching, training, and development activities of full-time research faculty and staff. Postdocs are not graduate students. Therefore, they're not eligible as graduate assistants. The designation fellow may apply to anyone from an undergraduate student to a very senior, even retired full professor. One of higher education's highest honors is to become a fellow of a national academy. Comparable position has its own confusion, if you ask me as well. And I would really like to answer all the questions that were asked about the graduate student as well.
Well, let's see if we have any questions from the committee. Senator Hershey.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, would you mind answering the additional questions that were asked of the graduate?
I would absolutely love to do that. I am, by the way, I'm a very pro-union person myself, but I find this a very, very strange mix of things. Number one, these are part-time, short-term, limited individuals who, by the time the negotiation is done, they're gone. Their work is based on coursework, and in our institution, their coursework is also in the research labs and the scholarship environments. So from the beginning to the end, they are registered as students, and they must remain students to qualify for the various IRS benefits, like the waiver of FICA and the lack of unemployment insurance paying, which saves the university about 9% per student and saves the student 9% of their salary. Other things that were mentioned, I think you might need to re-ask them because I can't remember quite all of them.
Well, I mean, again, I was concerned because there were various definitions of what a graduate assistant is, and I would think it'd be very...
There's only one definition. It's a graduate student seeking a degree who is offered work that is related to their degree. This is a very specific thing. Right. We have a TA program at Morgan covers about 150 doctoral students. It's won national awards. They have to engage in much training to become TAs, including earning graduate coursework in doing so, which has made it a unique environment. Our research money is one of the primary things that is driving the payment of graduate students, and it's very much under duress right now. In the last 4 years, we have tripled our research dollars. That is paying for graduate students. In fact, in the last 2 years, our graduate enrollment increased 35%, probably because we have some of the cheapest graduate tuition on the Eastern Seaboard and are attractive with very, very positive programs. People come for the programs. So that's to answer that broader set of questions you're asking, I think.
Okay,
Jessica.
well, I'll stop there because I'm sure the bill sponsor has a number of questions that he may look to ask as well, but I appreciate the chair allowing me to ask the question to continue your response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. The sponsor, Senator, you ready?
Turns out Senator Hershey's correct. There are some questions to be asked. Yes, if I may, thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Harrison.
Garrison. G.
Harris?
G. Garrison.
Garrison.
Yes,
My apologies. Dr. Garrison. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
You repeatedly made reference to graduate assistants as being part-time, short-term individuals. And that's a reason why they should not have the opportunity, should they choose to do so, to avail themselves of collective bargaining rights. Would you be able to answer this question? At the University of Oregon, are the graduate assistants there part-time, short-term individuals?
If they're graduate students, they are by definition short-term, and if they are graduate students, according to the IRS, they're working 20 hours a week or less. So they have to be part-time, and it is the terminal limit. Though it may go on, some of them may take forever to get finished.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. You gave me the answer, and I appreciate that because now I'm trying to grasp how graduate workers there have had the right to bargain collectively since 1976. So how is it that the University of Oregon, since 1976, has been able to afford the opportunity to offer their graduate assistants who are part-time, short-term individuals the right to bargain collectively, but it's your belief that would not function at the University of Maryland, and yet the job description's identically the same?
I wouldn't say the University of Maryland since it's Morgan State that I'm thinking of. So what I suspect is going on in Oregon is that there's enough financial support from the state to actually cover the costs of those graduate students.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you any empirical documentation or research of any kind whatsoever that would validate your assessment just now that there is a cost difference associated with this, and that somehow the University of Oregon is covering that cost, and therefore they can do this, but the University of Maryland can't? Other than your assertion, can you document and verify that that's factual?
I cannot answer for the University of Maryland.
So the answer is no.
Well,
all right. So let me ask you this. The University of Washington's graduate workers have been unionized since 2004. Can we assume that their listing as part-time, short-term individuals is any different than graduate assistants at the University of Maryland, yet somehow the University of Washington's making this happen?
May I offer?
No,
a
this was,
response?
please, Ms. Rojas, I'll be happy to visit with you shortly, but I just wanted to hear what the good Dr. Garrison.
Let me answer that first.
Because he's the one who repeatedly made this statement. I'm trying to grasp and understand why it's different at the University of Maryland than every Big Ten university with the exception of Ohio State.
I did not say that because they were short-term, part-time employees, that they shouldn't be eligible for collective bargaining. I did not say that.
Okay.
What I said was,
please correct me. And what
I said was
exactly?
because they were, what negotiation occurs for them, they do not benefit from because they're gone when these benefits arrive, if they do arrive. That's what I said, and that's what I tried to make clear.
All right, then focusing on your point just now, do you think it would be in the best interest of these graduate assistants who are here today, sitting in this committee hearing room, to set the table going forward for those who will follow in their shoes to ensure the rights they are denied right now will be available to those graduate assistants going forward in the future, because you're saddened that they are not going to benefit from it, and yet going forward, graduate assistants will, and therefore they're setting the table for the future, just like every other Big Ten university with the exception of Ohio State.
Well, so if I may answer that, it appears to me that the issues that were raised are fundamental issues that should have been handled through the mechanisms of the university, and that collective bargaining is not going to cause pay to be paid or not paid. That is an issue of HR doing something inappropriately, or possibly people not processing those items up front properly.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if, of all those listings, are there other mechanisms that should be at work to making sure that there's fair treatment of those individuals?
Evidently, there was not, because every one of these universities provides collective bargaining. The University of Maryland system still says meet and confer.
Well,
all right. On that note,
we're not part of that, by the way.
Let me ask you this.
From that.
On that note, does meet and confer guarantee that whatever it is these hardworking graduate assistants come to the university with a concern, that it will be resolved? Must the university system respond?
I do not know, because I'm not part of the university system and do not know anything about meet and confer. Well, I know I've read about it, but I would not know how it works.
I apologize. I thought you were relying on meet and confer as the alternative to collective bargaining, because you were just asserting that there are other alternatives. Evidently,
right. We have an HR department, a School of Graduate Studies. We manage very closely what's going on. We have a much smaller number of graduate assistants than the University System of Maryland, by the way. We only have about 300 total, and it includes master's students and doctoral students in this number. And we are very, very careful to make sure that they are paid properly. And sometimes they don't, because people aren't following the rules.
Thank you for sharing that. We're getting a little bit off track. Real fast. My impression was the other concern you expressed was with regard to definitions.
Yes.
That somehow in all of your lifelong experience, you haven't seen some of the definitions incorporated in the bill. Would you be willing to sit down with me and representatives of these graduate assistants and share with us what you think are the appropriate titles, so that we have it drafted appropriately, in your opinion, so that we are providing the end game, the goal of offering them the opportunity, and you're supportive of labor rights if they choose to bargain collectively. So would you sit down with me so that I have a better understanding of the definitions that you find that you have concern with?
Yes, I would certainly be willing to do that. That doesn't mean I'm endorsing the bill when I do that. That means I'm helping you write a clearer bill.
So would you support the bill if it had the titles that you would like to see?
You have to ask the president that. He's the one that's leading our group in making those decisions. But I don't have any problem making sure it's clear, because if it is passed, I do not want something that makes senior professors be able to claim that they have right now to bargain, because their name was what they were was put into this by accident.
Understood. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And quickly, Ms. Rojas, you began your testimony with a litany of expenses that are going to result in the, should these students choose to avail themselves of collective bargaining. Can you point to any other member of the Big Ten that has expressed concern about what these costs are, what it's running them, that somehow they can manage to bargain collectively and still function within budget? Can you share with me other Big Ten that provide collective bargaining that have offered you, yes, Ms. Rojas, here are all these additional expenses that come with this?
Thank you for that question, Senator Kramer. One thing I do want to clarify is that not all of the Big Ten institutions have collective bargaining for grad assistants. In my own research, I found that Purdue, Ohio State, Penn State, Nebraska, and Iowa do not. And, you keep referencing the University of Maryland College Park, which is the only—
I don't want to interrupt you, but can we—
Big Ten—
No, I just wanted to go through the list of states.
You asked about Big Ten schools.
Okay,
And
we'll
so,
come back to
so
it.
I
Thank
do
you.
just want to clarify that we only have one big institution in the university system of Maryland, and that's College Park. We have a total of 10 of our institutions that have graduate assistants who would be subject to this bill. So this bill doesn't just apply to College Park. It applies to everybody, a total of 7,000 or some graduate assistants across the system. I did not reach out to speak with any of the leadership at any of the Big Ten schools to ask them about costs. I expect that they do see some costs related to their collective bargaining for graduate assistants, as we have our own collective bargaining with other units in the university system of Maryland, and those certainly do have increased costs for us every time we go to the table and have to implement the terms that we've agreed upon.
Okay, great, thank you. Can we revisit your opening comments just now where you were questioning which universities in the Big Ten are permitted to bargain collectively? What was the first state that the first university, please?
And to clarify, we're talking about collective bargaining for graduate assistants.
For graduate assistants,
And
correct.
I can't remember which order I went in, but there's Ohio State.
Okay, Ohio State, we know.
I have Purdue.
Okay, please pause. All right, let's see. Purdue, as I understand it, has the right to bargain by law collectively and is currently organizing. I would welcome your documentation that reflects otherwise. So please feel free to document the assertion that Purdue does not. What was the next university?
Nebraska.
My understanding is that the University of Nebraska is currently organizing and has the right to collectively bargain by law.
They do for faculty and staff, but they don't for graduate assistants.
My understanding is that they do, so I would welcome your documenting that they do not. I would appreciate that. All right.
And I'd be happy to send you some documentation on all of those I've noted. I don't think we need to, spend the time going through each of them.
You immediately, looked me in the eye and said I was mistaken about these universities and my representations, and I don't want to misrepresent the facts. The last one I heard was the University of Iowa, and my understanding is that they are already bargaining, and they've had graduate workers have been unionized since 1996. And you represented to this committee just now the University of Iowa does not have that right. So I just want to try to be accurate and factual in our representations, both mine and yours. I thank you very much. And Madam Chair, thank you.
I do want to make one closing remark that I hadn't thought of until Sherry mentioned this. You have continually referred to the University of Maryland as a Big Ten, but it is, I think, 13 schools altogether with UMBC, St. Mary's,
We have 12 institutions and 3 regional higher ed centers. So the 2 public higher ed institutions that are excluded from the USM would be Morgan State and St.
What
Mary's.
I'd like to know is when we talk about these Big Ten schools, are they in a similar circumstance, and do all of their public institutions then have the right to bargain? I don't know if you can do that research or not, Ms. Roja, but that would be
I can certainly do that, sure.
Thank you. All right, thank you for the hearing. Senator Lamb?
Just one quick follow-up question.
I'm going to, great, you can have your question, but I want to remind everyone, we have 5 more bills, and one of them has about 20 people testifying, so please be brief, thank you.
Yes, just a follow-up question for Ms. Rojas. I know you had made a point about transient workers and wanted to understand why you think these folks are treated differently, because the National Labor Relations Board has ruled that temporary workers do have a right to form unions. So these folks, while you reference the fact that they're transient, why is there a difference here?
Well, the difference here is that as public institutions, we're not subject to the National Labor Relations Act or the rulings of the National Labor Relations Board. Each state is responsible for passing its own collective bargaining laws for public sector employees in the state. And so while the NLRB tends to go back and forth on issues depending on which administration is in place, the states are not bound by those decisions.
Okay. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to take my other questions offline.
Thank you, Senator. That ends the hearing. I see no other questions. Thank you both very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
We're now going to go to Senate Bill 43, Financial Institutions Maryland Community Investment Venture Fund. We have our Office of Commissioner of Financial Regulations, Commissioner Salazar. He's going to bring with him Michael Sprouse, Stephen Clampett, and Francesca Iofrida. Thank you. Senate Bill 43, you can be.
Okay, thank you very much. I learned a lot about unionizing in the university system. Thank you. Chair Beidel, good afternoon. Distinguished committee members, for the record, I'm Tony Salazar, Commissioner of Financial Regulation. I'm here with this panel to present SB 43 and request a favorable committee report for the proposed updates to the 2023 Access to Banking Act. The purpose of this bill is to maximize the impact of the Access to Banking Act in support of Governor Moore's vision of an equitable and competitive financial system that benefits all Marylanders. The panel will detail the changes to the Access to Banking Act that was just passed a couple of years ago and tell you about what's set forth in the bill, including an extension of the date by which the commissioner can match investments that are made by participating state chartered institutions. Any fiscal impact associated with this bill will be manifested in the Depository Special Fund, which is a fund that's funded by industry and has a sufficient balance to handle any expenses that would be brought on by this program. Overall, the updates have been introduced because we want to enhance, strengthen the Access to Banking Act. I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleagues, Deputy Commissioner Sprouse, to be followed by Maryland's Chief Innovation Officer, Francesca Iofrida, and Assistant Commissioner Clampett is here to answer any questions, technical issues, because these are the folks that have really been putting in the hard work and have been instrumental in implementing the bill and pushing it along to where we are. So they're best positioned to provide the committee with details. So thank you for your time. With that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Sprouse.
Okay, Chair Beidel and members of the committee, my name is Michael Sprouse. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Depository Supervision at the Office of Financial Regulation. It's my pleasure to be here with you to discuss SB 43. This bill builds on the 2023 Access to Banking Act by strengthening existing tools that expand access to financial services in Maryland's low and moderate income communities. First, the bill expands the purpose of the Maryland Community Investment Venture Fund. The MCIV fund was created to support small businesses through partnerships between fintechs and Maryland state chartered banks and credit unions. As we've implemented the program, we have heard clearly from financial institutions and the MCIV Advisory Board that consumers face many of the same access challenges as small businesses. This bill allows future fund dollars to support access to financial products and services for both consumers and businesses, enabling OFR to fully carry out the Act's mission of promoting inclusive innovation through Maryland's financial institutions. Second, the bill builds on the success of the existing assessment fee credit for institutions that maintain or open branches in LMI communities by creating a new assessment fee credit for institutions that offer a Maryland Opportunity Account. According to a 2023 FDIC survey, over 36,000 households in our state remain underbanked or unbanked and have difficulty accessing basic checking and savings accounts. Without basic banking services, households face greater difficulty managing everyday transactions, growing savings, and building relationships that lead to affordable credit. Aligned with the National Bank-On Framework, Maryland Opportunity Accounts meet standards set by the Commissioner to ensure these designated deposit accounts products are safe, affordable, and accessible, and the participating financial institution will be recognized with a fee credit. Together, these provisions strengthen the Access to Banking Act and support household stability, community resilience, and a fair and balanced financial services industry in Maryland. Thank you again, members of the committee. We urge a favorable report of SB 43.
Thank you. Someone else going to present? Or
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chair Beidel and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Francesca Iofreda, and I serve as the Chief Innovation Officer for the state of Maryland within Governor Moore's office. The governor's innovation team is tasked with identifying and developing new solutions to solve our biggest challenges, specifically improving economic mobility and reducing child poverty. In our work, we identified a persistent barrier, the capital desert in our low to moderate income communities. Without sufficient capital, Marylanders are cut off from the opportunities needed to build sustainable wealth, grow local economies, and break the cycle of poverty. That is why the Maryland Community Investment Venture Fund is so critical. We started our partnership with the Office of Financial Regulation to operationalize this innovative initiative nearly 1 year ago. Through deep engagement, including data analysis, small business surveys, and focus groups, we uncovered the barriers entrepreneurs face. We then use our understanding of these challenges to build a national pipeline of high-impact fintech solutions and help connect them with our state-chartered financial institutions. To give examples of the fund in action, we're seeing partnerships form around technology that fixes gaps in traditional credit data, allowing lenders to approve viable applicants who would otherwise be overlooked. We've also seen solutions that integrate financial education directly into the banking experience, solving a critical challenge. We're proud to report that as a result of the MCIV team's efforts, we've already received several applications for the inaugural round of grant funding. We support SB 43 because it scales this success. While small businesses are crucial anchors for local economies, this legislation expands the range of solution and the number of Marylanders who can benefit to all consumers in low to moderate income communities. This expanded scope directly advances the governor's agenda and our team's North Star from day one, building new, innovative pathways to work, wages, and wealth for all Marylanders. I strongly recommend a favorable report on SB 43. Thank you.
Are you also speaking?
No.
Oh, you're there.
Just here for technical questions.
Very good.
It's here for support.
I have a quick question. In the bill, it talks, or in the fiscal note, it talks about you add a cyber incident as one of the emergencies that a bank can close for. Now, I know it's weather and all. How long can they be closed if it was a cyber incident? People get a little scared when they can't access their money.
I can take that one.
Okay.
Chair Beidel, right now there's certain provisions in the statute that require when an institution does have to close to provide certain notice to our office, notice to the governor's office. Adding cybersecurity incident to that definition would allow that incident to also prompt those same notices to our office. And I believe it is beyond 24 hours that they then have to provide those particular notices.
It could go on for as long as they are having an issue with restoring their data?
As far as the cybersecurity piece of that, I would need to get back to you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Thank you for your testimony. We have three more favorables. John Bratsis from Credit Union Association, Robin McKinney, Cash Campaign of Maryland, and Tisha Edwards, Maryland Bankers.
Okay.
I just want to tell this lovely panel that you have all favorables in your testimony. There is no one opposed.
Historic. Historic.
That's great.
Historic.
So,
Go.
okay. I'm John Bratsakis, President and CEO of the Maryland and DC Credit Union Association, representing 61 credit unions that are headquartered in Maryland and representing 2.3 million Marylanders. We're here to speak in support of the bill and specifically the change to the consumer inclusion into working with fintechs. And one of the main reasons is that what we're seeing is there are partnerships with consumer programs that are expanding the ability to lend to low to moderate income communities. And it's actually increasing in many cases by 30% the ability to bring affordable credit to those that previously may have not been able to get that. And this bill and the amendments to it will allow us to accelerate that and expand that. And that was the one component that I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the distinguished Senate Finance Committee. For the record, my name is Tisha Edwards, and I'm proud to serve as the President and CEO of the Maryland Bankers Association. The MBA was founded in 1896. It's the premier advocacy organization for Maryland banks and bankers. In my role as the President and CEO, I serve on the Maryland Community Investment Fund Advisory Board, which advises the Office of Financial Regulation on the direction of the fund. I'm really excited to be here before you in strong support of Senate Bill 43, which builds on and refines the Access to Banking Act passed by this body in 2023. The Access to Banking Act took meaningful steps to expand access to credit in traditionally underserved communities. I'd like to thank Commissioner Salzar, the entire OFR team, and the Governor's Innovation Team for their magnificent work getting the fund up and running. The Access to Banking Act currently supports partnerships between Maryland chartered financial institutions and financial technology firms. These partnerships help to deploy innovative tools that expand access to capital for small businesses in low and moderate income communities. Senate Bill 43 broadens the impact of these initiatives by expanding eligibility to individual residents, not just businesses. This ensures the benefits of these partnerships reach entire communities, strengthening financial inclusion at the household level. Senate Bill 43 also addresses a practical barrier in the current assessment offset credit program. Right now, only banks with physical branches in low to moderate income census tracts receive credits. This unintentionally limits the number of institutions contributing to the MCIV fund or earning credits for supporting access to banking services. SB 43 corrects this by allowing institutions to earn credits when they open a Maryland Opportunity Account, which offers affordable, accessible transaction services to residents who may not otherwise have a reliable connection to the banking system. Expanding eligibility in this way increases participation, strengthens the fund, and enhances consumer access, all without compromising the program's goal. I want to thank the committee for their time, and I urge you to give Senate Bill 43 a favorable report. Thank you. Yes.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Robin McKinney. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Cash Campaign of Maryland. We help low-income people with their finances here in support of Senate Bill 43. We also sit on the advisory fund and want to give all of my kudos also to the Office on Financial Regulation and the Governor's Office on Innovation. It's been really exciting to work on this. The one thing I wanted to really underscore were the Maryland Opportunity Accounts. Cash Campaign of Maryland is the lead sponsor for the Bank on Maryland program, and that helps people to get connected to affordable banking, which could be in a bank or a credit union, which are very safe accounts. And the Maryland Opportunity Accounts have really been modeled after this. And I think it's really important as we're getting people, whether they're unbanked or underbanked, that they're getting into a safe account, and that gives them some guardrails. And I'm really excited to see with this bill passing what we can do next. So with that, I urge a favorable report.
Thank you all for your testimony. Next, we're going to go to Senate Bill 94, Commercial Law Earned Wage Access Revisions, and we're going to bring back Commissioner Salazar, Kathleen Highland, and Secretary Portia Wu.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Department of Labor Secretary Portia Wu. I'm here to introduce Senate Bill 94. Last year, the legislature passed HB 1294, which applied Maryland's loan laws to earned wage access products. These products allow workers, mostly hourly low-wage earners, to borrow against their wages before the end of the payroll cycle. They've really grown in popularity. In 2024, the Office of Financial Regulation conducted a market inquiry to understand how much these products were used. We found they're very heavily relied on by workers in low-wage communities, lower income, lower education, lower financial literacy. These are often heavily minority communities, and there tend to be a lot of women workers in these communities as well. In the 5 years that the inquiry covered, we found that Maryland consumers paid more than $35 million in fees on EWA transactions. There were over 11 million transactions in this time with over 300,000 unique users. We know these products can come with complex fee structures or high fees that would not be allowed with other kinds of loans, and they can often foster reliance on these services. We see individuals borrowing again and again and perhaps digging themselves into a cycle of debt. There are also in some products so-called tips asked from borrowers, but these tips are not going to workers. They are merely an additional service charge. Maryland has a tradition of strong consumer protections in its financial products, and last year's passage of legislation placed EWA products squarely in that strong protective framework. As we continue to modernize Maryland's laws to keep pace with the evolving financial product landscape, we need to continue to uphold that tradition. Specifically, new technology should not be a backdoor for old harmful practices to reemerge under a different name. We can enable innovation without sacrificing transparency, fairness, or legal protections. Last year, the governor allowed that legislation to become law without his signature, and he sent a detailed letter identifying important protections we believe were missing, we would like to see to improve these frameworks. Specifically, these loans were exempted from some basic truth in lending and anti-discrimination provisions that apply to all other loan products in Maryland. And as I noted, EWA providers can continue to ask for tips, which are not actually going to any individuals on these products. The legislation before you squarely addresses these concerns. I will turn it to Commissioner Salazar to speak in more detail, and I ask for a favorable report.
Thank you, Secretary Wu. Good afternoon, Chair Beidel and committee members. I'm the Commissioner of Financial Regulation, and it's our office that actually regulates earned wage access providers and products, and we are here also in support of SB 94. Because last year's bill established that regulatory framework for EWA products, and it did a really good job on a number of things, like affirm that these products are loans. But as the Secretary alluded to, Governor Moore's letter identified some issues with the bill, and we agree with those comments that consumers can be better protected with the addition of a few provisions that were not included in that 2025 bill. As the Secretary said, the provisions are, number one, primarily to prohibit lenders from asking for tips, because doing so safeguards small dollar borrowers from the exploitive tipping practices, which we believe are inherently abusive. These are folks with limited means, and they shouldn't be subjected to overt or subtle pressure to pay tips. Our 2024 study found that there was a high rate of repeat users and evidence that most of the EWA companies don't even obtain significant revenue from these tips. We found that the average user paid $282.44 in voluntary tips in the 5 years we studied to access their own wages. Those findings reflect some problems with that product, including potential dark pattern pricing and framing and steering, where consumers are led to that. The other two provisions are very simple. They prohibit false advertising and ensure non-discrimination based on the factors set forth in the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So the bill directly supports the governor's vision for a fair, robust, and competitive economy that benefits all Marylanders. It won't have a fiscal impact, so with that, we request a favorable report by the committee. I have Deputy Commissioner Highland here to address technical questions on these bill. So with that, we're ready.
Commissioner, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Senator
within 2
Hershey.
minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And, yeah, Commissioner, I would say a little bit, this is a 6-page bill. Essentially, it brackets off anything that has to do with the tips as one part of the bill. And then there's another part of the bill on page 3 that talks about how the EWAs are subject to Title 11 and then some additional subtitles. And then at the very end, there's just a small sentence that says, with the exception of Title 12-304, Title 12-305, Title 12-306.1 of this title. I don't have the Finance Institution article in front of me. It seems like there's a lot in that little bit, one line. Can you explain what's in that, please?
Yeah, I think perhaps that's how these two provisions of anti-discrimination and unfair advertising got lost, because these are somewhat technical provisions, but Deputy Commissioner Highland can explain.
Okay.
Sure, that's exactly right. The first provision deals with
thank you. I do have
a component of the commercial law article.
My assistant brought me the book.
Small loan law. The first provision addresses the issue of no misrepresentations being made in the course of advertising. The second specifically deals with the anti-discrimination. And the third says that if a business reasonably relies on a statement from the commissioner or the attorney general's office that happens to not comport to Maryland law, that they are immune from enforcement on that.
Okay.
They can show, I followed a written letter from the AG's office or something like that. So that's a
All right, so there's a
business
lot.
protection.
There's a lot in that part of it, and that I'd assume is outside of the tips, the substance of what the governor's letter was. Is that what you're saying as well, too?
Yes, they were incorrectly exempt from those provisions last year. So we just want to put back those provisions that the rest of the consumer lenders in Maryland have to follow.
Okay, when you say incorrectly exempted, does that mean that we did not make a decision on that, or was it discussed and we decided not to do it, or?
It's our position that that was an incorrect decision, so we want to put back
Do you-
application of those provisions.
Okay.
Senator, I do not believe that explicitly exempting them from those provisions was discussed.
Okay.
last
It
year.
wasn't
Yes, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure, because obviously we do have some of these businesses that are up and running right now, and they're running, again, based on the law that we passed. So I guess we're going to hear from them if this part of the law either, precludes or hurts them from doing business. We'll hear from that. The other part about the tips is very interesting, because Commissioner Salazar, you actually used the words voluntary tips, right? And so it is very clear that these are voluntary. We did very much talk about whether or not these tips should be allowed for or not. And the law very simply says, the lender will disclose to the customer who the tips will be allocated, and then at the same time set the default tips to 0. So that was very well thought out, I assume, that we talked about, I'm getting a look, that we talked about, at least decided in doing this. If these are voluntary tips and the consumer knows that they would have to actually make this not be 0 and put in an amount, what are we protecting them from if they're making this voluntary decision?
Sure. I guess, number one, it's a philosophical approach, correct? So tips, the consumer gets nothing. They benefit at all. If you go to a restaurant, you get good service, you can tip, right, voluntarily. You go anywhere else, you can always tip, because that reflects good service. In this case, you, as a consumer, don't get anything. All you're doing is giving extra money. You're not reflecting good service. For all we know, you've been asked 5 times Are you sure you want to give a tip? It could loop around. There could be systems set up that could kind of prompt you to just give the tip to move along.
You said could be. I mean, have you guys in the I guess has it been operating a full, I guess not a full year yet, but I mean, it's in other states. Are we seeing that that's what's happening? I mean, are these EWAs, trying to, again, persuade the customers or, to provide these tips, or is it just a check the box whether you want to, yes or no?
Well, we have seen research from other organizations who will be presenting testimony stating that sometimes the EWA providers would require consumers to go through 11 different screens where tip amounts were requested before they could get to the total and receive their the closure of their transaction. And so in trying to understand what this all meant, to answer that voluntary issue, we learned about a theory in economics called price obfuscation based on behavioral bias, which the FTC and CFPB have it nicknamed dark pattern pricing, saying that when we break up a transaction in many different ways, like making something $15.99 instead of $16, or we separate the different costs onto different pages, that this can mislead the consumer into not getting a good understanding of the total price of something. Right. So we want to protect consumers from that. In Maryland, we have a least sophisticated, unsophisticated consumer standard, and are worried about low-income, vulnerable consumers paying money against their best interest. They seem to fall into this phenomenon in economics.
And I would just add to that, too. I think the nature of the business and the way it's going is to not rely on tips, per se, right? So not a lot of companies we found collect them, right? So, and no other lenders that we regulate, we're aware of, do that.
Okay, well, that's interesting what you said about it, and I guess again we're going to have members from the industry that will come up and testify on what they thought about with respect to this. So, thank you all for your responses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I want to follow up on one of your questions,
yes, ma'am.
Senator Hershey. So, it was my understanding, and I have not actually read this in the COMAR, but when we refer to 12304, 12305, and 12316. It refers to loans, and that's something that we philosophically don't agree with, because this isn't a loan, it's your own money.
Right.
And so we think those areas need to be addressed, but not as loans. That's just something that we're going to be probably preparing an amendment for and asking you to review.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question on that as well? So are you saying that if we accept the bill the way that it's drafted right now, in a sense, we are accepting a change that makes this a loan?
Refers to loans in the bill.
Is that accurate?
Sure. Well, so what this does is it applies those standards to these products. See what I'm saying? So the standards set forth there are applied to these products. Last year there was a lot of discussion over whether or not EWA products were loans or not. Right. We firmly believe they are. We believe the law is, that way. These provisions here, I mean, anti-discrimination, we don't want any business discriminating, but there's no prohibition.
The problem isn't the discrimination issue, but it is the wording of using the word loan, and that's what these refer to. Right. So we'll get an amendment ready and have you review it.
Very good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you appreciate you bringing that up.
I just following up here. I feel like it's through the looking glass. We've sort of been going around and around on this in the last couple of years. Why is asking for a tip so objectionable? Everywhere I go, any service I use nowadays, people ask for a tip. It's not mandatory. And I just don't understand why. I understand the point you made, Mr. Salazar, about it could be harassing. Well, we could very easily just limit it and say you can ask once. I mean, so I just want to drill down a little further. I just feel like we're protecting people from themselves.
I could answer a little bit, sure. Senator, and this does go to, one of the things in the law. It's in current labor law. Tips aren't always defined per se, but we know, like, if you go to a restaurant, you get a tip, and actually the employer pays a lower tipped minimum wage, and we know those tips, even if it's at a fast food counter or whatever, they go towards the wages of those individuals who are serving you that food. What's very confusing about these online products is there's no person. Right? These are actually automatic. They are not underwritten. They're a quick advance against a guaranteed payback from your paycheck and your pay account. So there's no person handling your individual transaction. You hit the buttons and boom, the money goes. So that's what's, we think, misleading about, because low-wage workers actually are very prone to tipping. If they see the word tip, they will put money down because they know what it is to live on tips, but they do not realize that that money is not actually going to an individual. I recognize the statute tried to address that somewhat last year by saying to whom it's going. We all know that sometimes that print can be really fine, or you can't really understand it. You're just tired, it's late, you see it says tip, and you think, you know, that's what I do. I want to help a brother out, and then we're concerned that that might not be very fair.
If you, I appreciate the explanation. If you don't mind this rejoinder, why is that any of the government's business? Why does it matter who gets the money from the tip? There's no, like, why are we, this is a service being provided that they don't profit from, generally. These companies that do these loans, at least some of them, I don't know if all of them do, but my understanding from the ones that we've talked with, that they don't really make any money on the loan.
Well,
the tip helps to offset, let's put it this way, the tip helps to offset a lot of the operating costs when people, well, I just don't understand why and this may just be a fundamental disagreement. I don't understand why it's the government's business to get in between saying you can ask for a tip or not. I find that to be troubling.
I think there's, you know, a set of consumer protections. I think it's, you know, whether that's misleading or not. I mean, we often get in this area, and I think that's Maryland's heritage of saying, if you're going to operate and you're going to be able to, you know, have certain services operate as financial services in our state, you have to follow certain basic guidelines. And one of them is truth in advertising, not discriminating against protected groups, being transparent about what's really happening. If they called it, here's an additional service charge, you know, that might be more accurate and understandable to people, not here's a tip. So, but I
oh, that's fair. No, I mean, that's fair. I don't know if I totally agree, but I understand that side of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if I recall last year from some of the consumer organizations, a little bit, and I apologize if it did come out, a couple of the concerns about this tips, and I know some of the companies represented last year, they don't utilize it. Obviously, you pointing out that it appears as though the majority are not. But part of the concern was people thought maybe they wouldn't necessarily get the benefit, quote unquote, of this product if they didn't tip. So there's a certain sentiment of, well, if I don't tip, will the outcome be changed? And I think that's all, again, part of the concern you all are raising about transparency and actually calling it out for what it is. You know, if these companies want to say, hey, throw money at us and for no benefit, check a box here, then, you know, people can do that. But I think that part of the problem is obviously, and to your point, they also think, yeah, a tip's a good thing for some, you know, hardworking person out there, you know, trying to pick up food for the kids tonight, and I'm going to help them along with this tip, when in fact that is not the situation. And then again, just to follow up, the referenced subtitles that we were discussing, the point there is simply to, again, if I understand correctly, please tell me yes, to provide transparency, which I think is always a positive thing, and to ensure that the consumers fully understand exactly what it is they are doing, what the product may be. And not everyone is sophisticated in their knowledge of how finances out there in the world may work. And so that, it's best to let them be able to make comparisons by having an understanding and transparency as to what they're doing. And I believe last year you all were suggesting an APR. Do I recall that correctly?
Yeah, you recall correctly.
Yeah, and are you looking to do that in this year's bill? I didn't.
No.
I didn't see that. I think probably was a real good idea to have an APR, again, in the name of transparency. I can understand why the companies don't want it, so people don't know what actually the kind of rate were it converted into an APR they'd be paying, because they would probably immediately jump off the website. But thank you. I just wanted to clarify a couple of those issues.
Can I help you with one clarification?
please,
Just to
please
follow up on two things you said. Number one, we're pursuing a bill based on the governor's comments. So we have these things because we agreed with those. Number two, in terms of transparency, I think there's also a worry that these products are used primarily by folks with lower levels of financial attainment, sometimes, elderly, lower levels of education. And even for anybody else in this day and age, I think some of the problem with the tips is people are worried about what kind of impression am I going to make to the system, right? So is the system going to look at me in a different way if I don't tip?
If you fail to tip.
Exactly. I don't know what kind of metrics these people keep. So what happens if I don't tip this time? Next time, maybe I won't get it. And so
Sort of like your Uber rating,
that's what, I think that's a valid concern among consumers, and that's why I don't think tips are appropriate in this context.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I don't see any further questions for this panel. We have one favorable from Maryland Legal Aid, Anthony Davis.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Anthony Davis. I am the Advocacy Director for Maryland Legal Aid. I work in consumer law. Maryland Legal Aid is a nonprofit law firm that provides free civil legal services to the state's low-income and vulnerable residents. This includes abused and neglected children, nursing home residents, the working poor, and veterans. We have 12 offices around the state, and we handle a wide range of issues. We are in support of the passage of Senate Bill 94. Although many of our clients are low-wage workers and elderly, the topic addressed by this legislation is not primarily a low-income issue. Many families in Maryland live paycheck to paycheck, barely able to make ends meet, and they find it hard to afford even the bare necessities, like food, housing, and utility costs. As we consider ourselves, Maryland Legal Aid, a law firm of last resort, so are these products for many Marylanders. The stark realities of living in day-by-day, paycheck to paycheck creates a market for these providers. To that end, we were thankful for the legislator and the Office of the Commissioner for enacting the protections last year in 2025. And we support this legislation as it further strengthens the consumer protections that help wagers, make sense to help workers, make sense of what tips are, whether or not they need to do it or not, and the tip ban and the and the further protections of tightening compliance expectations are very beneficial to our clients. For that reason, and many more, we support the passage of Senate Bill 94. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't see any questions. Thank you for your testimony.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So now I have 5 people that are favorable with amendment. Deputy Attorney General Leonard Howey, Wilson Meeks from the Maryland Attorney General's Office, Whitney Barclay Denny, Marceline White, and Robin McKinney. I can't believe you all stayed till 6:30 on a Thursday night, but thank you.
Go ahead, just run it.
Good evening, Chair Bidle and members of the Senate Finance Committee. My name is Leonard Howey, Deputy Attorney General. We're here to testify in support of Senate Bill 94 because it corrects flaws in the 2025 legislation that still places our most economically vulnerable populations at risk. Marylanders do need a way to access their wages as they've been earned, but before they were received. This access, however, needs to be safe and free from predatory practices. Two amendments that we are particularly interested in are those addressing monthly caps and stacking. While there are existing caps on transaction fees, providers are currently able to structure their products in a way that encourages consumers to take on multiple loans, each of which being subject to a separate fee. And when you add the ability to charge unlimited subscription fees just to access the lending platforms, we are concerned that consumers can easily end up paying as high to 300 or 400% APR on their loan products. Stacking occurs when consumers get multiple loans from multiple EWA lenders during the same pay period. When this happens, costs can quickly eat away at paychecks for those who are already teetering on a financial cliff. While consumers are ultimately accountable for their own decisions, we propose that EWA lenders are best situated to prevent the stacking problem. They have the tools and technology to provide system-wide warning signs for the unwary and at times desperate consumer. By way of example, Connecticut also passed an EWA law in 2025. Their law contains a requirement similar to what we are seeking here in Maryland, and that is to establish that EWA providers establish policies and procedures that will flag the issuance of multiple loans that total more than a consumer's unpaid wages during a single pay period. Senate Bill 94 will have amendments that the Office of the Attorney General can support. Because of this, we will not have amendments of our own. Instead, we are committed to working with the sponsors, with the committee, to make sure Maryland's Earned Wage Access Law works fairly for everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration. Bill? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure. I'm here to help answer questions. I'm Bill Meeks from the Consumer Protection Division.
Thank you.
The
So
AG's
how about
office.
Whitney Barkley? I just want to keep you moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so yes, we do realize that it's 6:30, believe me. So in the spirit of keeping things moving, I'm not going to read the long 2 minutes that I have already submitted to you. I will just note that in my testimony, I also submitted further amendments for consideration that are in alignment with what the Attorney General's office just testified to. Stacking is a really large concern of ours at Center for Responsible Lending. If you look at some of the data that I'm happy to get you, for example, from the New York Attorney General's office lawsuit against MoneyLion, we know that the vast majority of people who they are making money from, and they are making money, these are not a charity, they're not a nonprofit, they are a corporation, are people who have many of these loans either out at once or over time. And so something in this legislation that would stop that type of stacking would be really important to making sure that this bill has all of the guardrails that it possibly can for consumers. So with that, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm out of here in 45 seconds, and I'll pass it on.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you so much. Happy to be here. And we support the intention of the bill. We think it's a good first step to ban the tipping, but we also believe that more needs to be done to protect consumers with these products. And so you have my written testimony. The one thing I really want to say is we know in this chamber, as well as on the House side, one of the North Stars this session is affordability. And I will say that what we've seen is with the tips and fees and subscription charges, consumers who use these loans are taking out loans that cost them about 90% APR just to borrow their own money. And so I think that's something that we all should be concerned about when we think about affordability. We, like others, are concerned about the loan stacking and about the fee caps, and we would appreciate you considering those amendments so that we can have these products but make sure they're affordable credit and accessible credit for people, not digging them into a debt hole. So with that, we urge consideration of these amendments, and I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Reva McKinney again with the Cash Campaign of Maryland. A couple quick things. You have some ideas of amendments, all of which you have heard us talk about in the past, but I just wanted to highlight a couple things. One, the loan that, these are loans. That's what the bill passed last year, and that was an industry bill that came through. So reminder that the whole system that the Commissioner on Financial Regulation is working off of is that these are loans. And on the tipping issue, one of our big concerns has always been sort of to your point, Senator Kramer, about the ask for the tip coming before the service is prepared. So actually I have a pamphlet here, happy to pass it around, of an example of the 17 times a tip was asked for prior to the loan being made. Yes. So should anyone want to see it, and a shrinking fortune cookie, you are welcome to take a look at that. And then lastly, on the issue of stacking, when we asked our cash client, all of which who earn mostly less than $20,000, are they using these loans? And what we are finding is that people are shopping for the same $100 from multiple places. There is technology to help with this. There are companies that are at the ready to do this. So we would really appreciate that being added in. Also with that, we urge a favorable report.
Robin, does your written testimony tell us what's available to prevent the stacking?
So there are companies that do offer that as a service. And I will, when the Keybridge collapsed, our organization put out the Port Worker Cash Assistance Program, partnered closely with Department of Labor on that. And one of the things that we did is we had to go in and verify people's income and just double check to make sure that they hadn't gotten the funds somewhere else. And so we, tiny nonprofit, were through the tech company that we work with, we're able to go in and verify all of that very simply. So I would say there's a lot of companies that do this.
I agree. That's a huge concern, and I think that's where the interest starts to mount up.
Yes.
So thank you for that. So thank you all for your testimony. Next we have, no other questions. Next we have 6 unfavorables. So I have 5 chairs. I think, no, do we have 6? We have 6 chairs. Okay. So Ben LaRocco, Max Raymond, Sarah Mamula, Roger Mano, Tara Ryder, and Frank Boston. Boy, nobody went home. It's okay. Who's the person here?
Max Raymond.
Max, we're going to start with you, Max, and you're going to go right down the line. I'm not going to keep calling on you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Chair Beidel and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Max Raymond. I represent the Chamber of Progress Tech Industry Association that supports policies that seek to create a society where everyone benefits from technological advancements. And I respectfully urge you to oppose SB 94. Less than a year ago, Maryland enacted one of the strongest earned wage access frameworks in the country, and that law provides robust consumer protections, strict fee caps, a required no-cost option, no late fees, no credit checks or reporting, and non-recourse transactions. SB 94 would undo key parts of this framework without adding in meaningful protections. This bill's centerpiece is a ban on voluntary tipping, but Maryland law already ensures that tips are truly voluntary. Default tip must be 0, disclosures must be clear and repeated, tipping can never affect access to service, and tips are refundable. Consumers are not pressured, misled, or coerced, and a full ban removes consumer choice to solve a problem that existing law already addresses. Voluntary tipping helps keep EWA products free or low cost, and eliminating it could force providers to change their fees, limit services in Maryland, or exit the market altogether, leaving workers with fewer options at a time that we're facing an affordability crisis in this country. Research consistently shows that EWA access is used for essentials like rent and groceries, and under the current administration, Marylanders have seen a $1,326 increase in household expenses. EWA users understand the products, prefer them to risky alternatives, such as payday lending, and report meaningful improvements in their financial stability. For these reasons, we urge you to oppose SB 94 and preserve Maryland's balanced and effective EWA framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Beidle, members of the committee. My name is Ben LaRocco from EarnIn, one of the nation's largest EWA providers. I'm here in opposition to Senate Bill 94. You guys have seen me here. I think this is the 5th time in the last 2 years that I've been here before you talking about this issue. This bill only went into effect in October. We don't even have our license yet, even though we applied for it many months ago. This bill is unnecessary. It's likely unconstitutional. Solicitation is protected corporate speech, and the banning of the solicitation of a tip would fail the Hudson test, which says any restrictions must be narrow. They've never shown, nobody at OFR has ever shown actual consumer harm. It's a, words of the commissioner, philosophical approach, which is the definition of content-based discrimination. There's no financial services exemption to the First Amendment. The other provisions also undo the carefully crafted compromise that was passed last year. These are loans under Maryland law, but they're unique loans. They have unique protections, unique risks and benefits to consumers. We happy to take any questions and recommend members of the committee oppose Senate Bill 94. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Beidle and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify you before this evening. I'm here representing the Financial Technology Association, a trade organization that represents fintech companies, including several leading providers of earned wage access. FTA champions the power of technology-centered financial services and advocates for the modernization of regulation to support competition, inclusion, and innovation. With successful passage of earned wage legislation in Maryland just last year, FTA opposes Senate Bill 94. In a time of affordability challenges, EWA is a lifeline for many hardworking Marylanders. EWA provides workers the ability to tap into their already earned wages between pay cycles. It helps people pay their bills on time, manage cash flow, and handle emergency expenses. EWA is safe, transparent, making the product unique to other riskier options in the market. There are no mandatory fees, no credit checks, no interest, and no impact on credit scores. EWA providers always offer a zero-cost option, and workers can only access a portion of their paychecks before payday. They are non-recourse and simply let people access the wages they have already earned. These protections apply whether the model is business to business and offered as an employee benefit or direct to consumer, which allows any worker to choose the provider that best fits their needs. Last year, Maryland successfully passed EWA legislation to provide important risk-based regulatory clarity for an innovative product that many Marylanders rely on. Legislation which reflected years of work by this committee. With such recent passage of EWA legislation that ensures strong, clear consumer disclosures and codifies the existing consumer protections of EWA products, we urge the committee to oppose Senate Bill 94. I thank the committee for championing innovation in financial services and working to provide the people of Maryland with quick and convenient access to their already earned wages. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Roger Mano on behalf of PayActive. PayActive is a employer-integrated earned wage access provider doing business in the state of Maryland, providing services for more than a decade. PayActive is also a public benefit corporation and a B Corp proudly, has never and will never solicit tips, offers several free options to customers, no credit checks, non-recourse. For a great many reasons, we oppose this bill, but largely respectfully to Secretary Wu and Commissioner Salazar and the great work that they've done these last few years trying to get this product regulated. We think that it's premature and it creates confusion. As was mentioned before, last year's bill was only implemented in October, and since then a licensure process has begun to unfold. There's a great many EWA providers who are still not licensed, and we believe that this bill just creates a little bit of confusion in that process, and we think that it's best given an unfavorable report for those reasons, so thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Frank Boston. I'm here on behalf of EarnIn, along with Ben LaRocco. This committee put in a lot of work in the past 2 years to come up with a very good bill, a workable bill. And as Senator Hershey mentioned earlier, you specifically made you contemplated the tip issue and made sure the default was set to 0. Let's see how the new law works first before we make any sweeping changes. There hasn't been an army of people, an army of customers complaining about the tips. And let's face it, everywhere you go, there's a tip option. Senator Reeder, you were right. Everywhere you go, let's start with the cafeteria downstairs, right? There's a tip option. And take the whole spectrum to the political campaign fundraising platforms. There's a tip option. It's a part of the fabric. It's a part of what everybody does, and it's normal. And for these companies, the average tip in many cases is $1 or $2. And usually when there's a tip given, that is because there is no fee or a very small fee. The current law, I can't even say it works fine because we haven't given it a chance yet. You know, we were here less than a year ago, 9 months ago, when this committee passed the bill. Let's see how the law works. Let's see how the tip thing works before we change anything. I requested unfavorable.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tara Ryder, and I am the Vice President of Policy and Government Relations at Bridget, which is a financial wellness company that offers direct-to-consumer earned wage access to over 130,000 consumers in Maryland with an average of $75 per transaction. As you know, earned wage access is a financial lifeline that so many Maryland residents rely on. I'm not here to speak about the tip aspect. Bridget does not solicit tips. However, I am concerned with making changes to a newly enacted law. Over the last 2+ years, myself and industry colleagues have had robust and open conversations with the legislature, the Office of Financial Regulation, consumer advocates, but most importantly, our customers to develop a framework for providers to operate under. As a result, Chapter 847 was created and went into effect just a few short months ago. Chapter 847 establishes consumer protections, a licensing requirement for providers, as well as a first-in-the-nation fee cap for delivery fees. Bridget offers an optional $2.99 expedite fee and a totally optional subscription fee for a suite of financial services that are not incident to the EWA transaction. We appreciate the time and efforts that both the Senate Finance Committee and the House Economic Matters Committee have spent working with stakeholders on this important issue over the last 2+ years. Amending the bill further may potentially create more confusion as part of the licensing process and put new requirements on providers who are still awaiting licensure under the current framework. I ask that providers are given a fair opportunity to gain their licensure before any amendments are made that may impact our operations. Should any issues arise, we continue an open dialogue with all interested parties to determine the best path forward, as we have done for the last 2 years. Our concern is mostly the unknown, given the lack of licensure to date. Thank you again for your efforts in creating a responsible framework for earned wage access for providers to be licensed under. I urge you to not take any further action on this new law where so many providers are still awaiting licensure.
Thank you. We have some questions. I'm going to start with Senator Mounts and go around.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ben, thank you for your testimony. Good to see you. I'm sorry we haven't seen you again, but you were talking about content discrimination. Can you explain that or elaborate on that a little bit to explain the details of what that is?
Yeah, thanks, Senator Motz. Happy to. So the Central Hudson test says that corporate solicitation is protected speech under the Constitution. In order to pass something that limits solicitation, there must be substantial government interest. It must directly advance that interest, and the regulation cannot be more extensive than necessary given that interest. And I would argue that last year the committee did that, set the tip to 0. There are, if there's a solicitation practice that is abusive, then that would not be covered, and you would not be able to do that. But strictly banning tips is a content-based restriction. And let me illustrate that. So one of the previous witnesses works for a group called the Center for Responsible Lending. It's a nonprofit. It's owned by a larger nonprofit that's multi-billion dollars, much bigger than any company in the earned wage access industry. If you go on their website and ask to donate money to the Center for Responsible Lending, they will solicit a tip from you to pay their for-profit fundraising consultant. So the government would say, you can solicit a tip to lobby against earned wage access, but you cannot solicit a tip to support earned wage access. That is the definition of a content-based restriction.
Thank you.
Senator Reedy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ben and I misspoke earlier when I said that many of these companies don't profit from the loan. That's obviously not true. What I should have said is you have no collateral to, if someone says, loan me money, and you do it, and then they say, screw you, I'm not paying, they can't use you again, but other than that, there's no collateral, unlike any other, pretty much any other kind of loan. So, so the tip is a little bit also a hedge against that. It's an opportunity for you to make up for that, et cetera, et cetera. And what I wanted to, I'm glad you elaborated on that. I was curious if this is breaking ground, if there are other states that are exploring this, or if this is, and this could be for anybody, I guess, on the panel for one person, but are we breaking ground by trying to just, this is not the only thing this bill does, but just trying to ban.
Yeah, there are no other states that ban tips.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Raymond, you indicated that if tipping were prohibited, competition in the marketplace would be reduced. Did I understand that correctly?
That was in my remarks. Yes, sir.
Yes. Does that mean, for instance, entities that are represented by Senator Mano sitting there that don't take tips, they would still be in the marketplace, correct? They would be providing the same opportunity that the ones that, and I appreciate Mr. LaRocco's concerned about our First Amendment as we do our best to find ways to rip off consumers. But share with me, we would still have companies like Senator Mano's representing still competing in the marketplace, correct?
No, I don't want to speak for individual companies nor their specific business models, so I would refer those questions to specific companies.
All right, but I mean, you did indicate there's going to be a reduction in competition, and yet I'm trying to understand that where that assertion is coming from. Because I see companies that don't ask for tips still in the marketplace, and I don't know what percentage do, what percentage don't. But you made the assertion that there's going to be a reduction in competition, and I'm just trying to get a handle on where that assertion comes from.
And I'm happy to get back to you with more specific data that I have. I don't have it all off the top of my head, but I can get back to you and your staff with a written response on that.
Okay, great. And is that the position of the Chamber of Progress? That's their position, whatever this Chamber of Progress is?
That is in my remarks, and that is our position. It is quite possible, just due to the economics, that it could reduce competition.
Gotcha. All right. Let me ask you this. I didn't hear anybody opine on the issue of stacking. What is your sentiment on stacking, Mr. Raymond? Do you think that technology should be utilized to prevent stacking? Or do you think that's a good thing and a positive outcome for people to keep borrowing from different sources all over the place, and by the time their paycheck shows up, there's nothing there? Share with me where the Chamber of Progress, if you would please, what their position is on the issue of stacking.
Not in support of stacking. I believe that individuals should do what's best for their financial interest, and stacking is not a smart financial decision for people to take, and it's not responsible with their own money.
So, and I'm inclined to agree with you on that. So, do you think the Chamber of Progress would be supportive of an amendment to this legislation that would address the issue of stacking?
It would depend on what would potentially be in that. I would be happy to have further discussions with you and your staff if that's something that you have in mind.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And just my last question, please. I think it's Ms. Ryder there on the end. you indicated that these types of loans are a lifeline for consumers. I'm sorry, what is the name of your company that you represent?
Bridget.
I'm sorry.
Bridget.
Urgent?
Bridget.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That's the company? Oh, Bridget, okay, I got you. Okay. Did Bridget at any point in time ever engage in the business of payday loans?
It did not.
They did not. What was your sentiment about payday loans? Because when this body made the decision to prohibit payday loans because of concerns about consumers being ripped off, the refrain we heard over and over from that industry was they were a lifeline to consumers. So could you share with me your sentiment with regard to payday loans and a lifeline to consumers and your product as a lifeline to consumers?
Payday loans and earned wage access are two completely different products, so I'm not seeing the comparison of the two. Payday loans have compounding interest, harassment, reporting to credit bureaus. They are recourse, where earned wage access allows an individual who may be on a monthly pay cycle to access maybe $50 or $100 to put gas in their tank or food on their table or pay a copay. So I think it's a very different product generally. Bridget is also a financial wellness company. We have a host of products and services that allow consumers to better their financial picture. We have a credit builder product, so individuals can build their credit, whether they had a thin credit file or poor credit history, so they can have access to more traditional means of credit. We also have a marketplace where consumers can find discounts on anything from auto insurance to promos through various things like Uber. We also have
Well, real fast, what would be the sentiment of, and I appreciate your offering the entire portfolio that Bridget provides. What would Bridget's sentiment, because obviously, as you just indicated, they're engaged in financial wellness. What would be the sentiment with regard to stacking for Bridget as it applies to financial wellness?
So in our terms of service, our customers already agree that they will not utilize the same income to take out advances or multiple transactions from multiple providers. So as far as Bridget is concerned, stacking is already addressed in our terms.
So you would support language that would prohibit, would create a mechanism by which stacking would be prohibited?
I absolutely think we could discuss what that would look like.
Okay, so it sounds like the industry is getting on board with the idea of prohibiting stacking. Last question, if I may, Madam Chair, again, with regard to financial wellness, what is Bridget's sentiment about this claim of a tip and financial wellness? Does Bridget
does not solicit tips.
They do not. Okay, so you're another one of the entities that does not do that.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions? Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a little bit off topic, but I heard it a number of times. Maybe Mr. LaRocco could offer a little bit more insight. But I heard that several of you have not received your license yet. And, again, I certainly respect the work that the Secretary does in the Department of Labor, but we've also been hearing very often that we're trying to ease regulatory hurdles in Maryland. Have you been given any type of reason on why you haven't gotten your license yet? I'm assuming you didn't apply for it yesterday. Maybe just a little bit on the timing and what the response from the Department of Labor and Regulation.
Yeah, we applied for it back in September. We haven't gotten it yet. the response has been that we're busy, there's some other conversations. I'll say one thing that was very different about the request here when they requested over 30 million pieces of information on our customers. After that, including the personally identifiable information for every single person that's ever used Earnin in the state of Maryland. So that was one of the pieces of data that they asked for after we applied for a license. So just, it's been an interesting process.
And your experience in applying for licenses in other states, you're not seeing that same type of request?
No.
Anyway, there was, Mr. Boston, did you mention it also, or was it Mr. Mano that mentioned also about the delay in licensing?
Yes.
Yeah, what have you heard?
Senator, we haven't heard much, and we've just been recently asked for a large document request, let me put it that way, which I don't believe was part of last year's bill or any of the regulations.
Okay.
So it seems like there's a sort of an ancillary licensure requirement that was mysterious, I think, to all of the providers when those document requests started flying.
Okay, so another request for a large amount of information that
That's my understanding,
had
yes,
not
sir.
expected as well, too. Okay. Maybe we could, Madam Chair, just ask the Secretary what the holdup in licensing may be and if there's any type of issues that we might need to address as we're looking at legislation this year.
You want to do that now or wait?
No, I know we're busy and the Secretary's not up at the panel
Okay.
now, but
That's why
I
it's
think
asking.
she's hearing me. So
No, I
we
think
can-
that's a good question.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
Senator
guys.
Land?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So in interest of time, just one clarifying question to the testimony that you all provided. So are you opposed to the entire bill and even having to follow the ban on misleading kind of information to consumers? I think that's section 12304 or just the ban on discrimination in 12305?
So I'm happy to address those. I think the concern is that part of the reason why we needed our own section of the law is that the way this product works is different than the way a traditional loan works. Like you don't underwrite, you don't do the normal credit score risks that work with different loans. And so those concerns were addressed in our law. These provisions are essentially trying to add on other ill-fitting regulations that don't work well with the product. So of course we support the idea that you shouldn't have deceptive advertising. Of course we support the idea that you shouldn't be able to discriminate on immutable characteristics. But this is written in a very clumsy way. At no point was it communicated to us. At no point was it communicated to us in the last 2 years that we've been negotiating this. So we think that my position is that this whole thing is a bad faith bill that's really just designed to add red tape on the industry.
So you're okay with these protections if we wanted to just make clear in the law that you can't mislead or discriminate?
Of course.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Senator Powell, the last question goes to you.
I think we've been around the whole circle, huh? Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, panelists, for your testimony. I have a couple questions sort of following up on some of the other line of questions. First, Ben, I wanted to ask you that the case that you cited regarding constitutionality, what was the name of it?
Central Hudson.
Okay, and it was protecting what kind of solicitation?
Corporate solicitation as corporate speech. So like corporations are allowed to solicit people to use their product.
And in that case, so they were soliciting use of a product, so they weren't soliciting some sort of donation or?
Yeah, I don't know actually what the underlying case entailed, but it has created a standard for what is allowable under, corporate speech under the First Amendment.
Okay, interesting. I know we talked about like some of these products. I was just Googling it, and I know that there was some companies that were here last year that I don't see here at the table this year, and I don't see that they've submitted testimony either. And I'm just trying to understand. I know you all have your different structures as far as like how you get paid for the services that you provide. Who asks for tips? I know that we got Dave, Bridget, Moneyline, Daily Pay, PayActive. There's a Chime, a whole bunch. So of those, who solicits tips?
Earnin.
Is that it?
Yeah. I want to be.
Okay.
I want to be clear. Earnin solicits tips in some states, not all. It currently does not solicit tips in the state of Maryland.
Okay.
But we do still generate.
Because you don't have a license, though, so you're not.
We don't have
okay.
a license.
Yeah.
But for the first 10 years that we were around, tips generate 100% of our business. It's still a meaningful part of our business. In states like Maryland where we don't solicit tips, our fees are higher. In states where we do solicit tips, our fees are lower. And it's still, again, we still think it's an important right that we should be able to have to talk to our customers. I think part of the issue is if customers don't want companies that solicit tips, as Senator Kramer noted, there is a very wide variety of market players, and they could choose some other one. So there is not a need for the government to make that decision for the customers.
Okay, but just to be clear, it's only Earnin that's soliciting
there are other companies, but I wouldn't want to speak for them.
Okay. And then we've talked, in the last panels, talked a little bit about who's seeking out these products. And I feel, and I remember last year too, my sort of sentiment is on, I get sometimes people need a little bit to float for the next month, whether it be BG&E bill or whatever the case, not to bring up a sore topic, but, or to bring, to bridge them, for the, which I assume that's what the name of the business is after, but in order to get them by for a little bit. And I know that there was some testimony that the people that are using these types of products are people that are low income, and I guess that kind of goes without saying. If you got a lot of money in the bank account, you probably don't need to use these products. But maybe, I don't know, Ben, I think you may have some data as far as
happy to talk about.
Let me just finish the question real quick. Of the salary of the people that are using your services.
Yeah, happy to. So about 10% of our customers make over $125,000 a year. If you look at the majority, it's in the $35,000 to $75,000 range. That's like where the median of our customers are. So it's all it's all income levels. We offer free credit monitoring. Not everybody does it, so it's not exactly representative. But only 5% of our customers have a credit score of 680 or above, which is considered good. 50% of our customers that use this service have 380 or below. If you have a credit score of 380, your options in the marketplace are quite bad. And so people are choosing this because their other options are not great. Earnin also did a study a few weeks ago that once people started using Earnin, their income actually went up 10% after using Earnin. And that's because they could better connect their earnings with their work. So they pick up that extra shift. Their income is less variable, it's steadier. So there are meaningful financial health benefits to using the product.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Just one last question, Madam Chair. I know it's late, but Tara, has Bridget ever considered doing tips? Like, why do you not solicit tips? Why don't you have that fortune cookie on your app?
So Bridget operates a little bit differently. Tips have never been part of the business model. The expedite fee has always been typically low, and a lot of our customers, as Ben pointed out, and the senator pointed out, there are multiple companies in the marketplace. Most of the Bridget consumers, they are our customers for our suite of services. We do have a large amount of customers that have our free app and they only use our free EWA service, but a lot of our customers are utilizing our subscription-based service, which is not for EWA, it's for the suite of services to help them on the path to financial wellness. And they know that EWA is there if they need it at no cost. And they're really subscribing for the full suite of services, which include identity theft protection, credit monitoring, a 0% APR credit builder loan, financial literacy tools, access to our Earn and Save marketplace, which also has career training. We just had about 200 of Bridget users go through career training, which has helped them find better paying jobs. So we're really proud of that. So Bridget is really a holistic financial wellness company, and it just operates differently than a lot of our peers.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I see no further questions. That ends the hearing on Senate Bill 94. Senator Solling, are you still here? Maybe we were lucky enough we went home.
Yes, ma'am.
There you are. And you have
I have a
Christine-
panel. Okay, come up. That's
Yep.
okay, Madam Chair.
David Zinner can come up with you, and, okay, that's it, you and David.
For the record, I'm still Senator John Ray Salling. Thank you. Senate Bill 233, it's a business regulation, cemeteries. All right, I'm going to get you. Auctions for sale, transfer, and alternate use. When you hear the testimony, Madam Chair and committee, I think this is more of a cleanup bill. I think it's something that we should have been doing a long time ago. But cemeteries are not ordinary a piece of land. They are a remembrance of history, and it's a deep personal meaning, has a deep personal meaning. Yet under current law, there is no clear process to ensure that descendants and families or communities has a voice when the cemetery land is proposed for sale, or transfer, or redevelopment. And there's so much I could say in here, but I think just saying that, I think we need to move forward with our cemeteries for the auctions or transfers and alternate use. But I want the experts that is to speak on this. So I'm not going to take a lot of time on this bill for that, but thank you, Madam Chair, and there you go.
Thank you, Senator. So David, would you like to go next?
Can we do Tina first?
Christine Simmons?
Yes.
Okay, she is favorable with amendment.
Yes.
I would rather take you first, so we understand the bill before we hear about an amendment.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Beidel and members of the Senate Finance Committee. I'm David Zinner. I'm a consumer member of the Maryland Advisory Council on Cemetery Operations, but I am not representing either the Department of Labor, the Office of Cemetery Oversight, or the Advisory Council. I do have the privilege of being the coordinator for the Maryland Cemetery Legislative Advocates. Our 12 members work on a range of issues from cemetery improvement to genealogy. You'll hear from many of our members today, and hopefully you'll get to dinner afterwards. We reviewed our bill from last year, which was the SB 1021, which passed the committee but was heavily amended. The first 5.5 pages of this bill, SB 233, are mainly definitions. The substantive portion of the bill runs from the middle of page 6 to the middle of page 8. SB 233 maintains the structure of existing law while focusing on needed additions on critical issues. Let me break that down. SB 233 modifies current cemetery law, specifically the Business Regulation Article 5-505. Most of the regulation under Title V deals with the Office of Cemetery Oversight, but Section 5-505 does not. The current law in 505 uses the words, "A court may pass a judgment for sale of a burial ground for another purpose." SB 233 retains the court's role. Our bill clarifies that we are talking about land on which there is a cemetery that is proposed for a non-cemetery use. SB 233 identifies critical issues not in the existing law, including recognizing the rights of descendants, descendant community organizations, and specifically the law does not discuss the role for the court regarding, current law does not discuss a role for the court regarding negotiations or compromise solutions. Our bill clarifies the court must decide whether to allow the sale, prohibit the sale, or propose an alternate plan, such as setting a price or transferring ownership. So please, the bill has no monetary fiscal note. We hope you'll pass the bill.
Thank you. And Christine?
Chair Beidel, members of the committee, my name is Christine Simmons. Senate Bill 233 strengthens Maryland's existing cemetery law by creating a clear process that holds cemetery property owners accountable. It ensures that before a cemetery or a part of one can be sold or repurposed, descendants have a real voice in what happens. And when disputes arise, the court has a defined role in resolving them. I've spent many years researching cemetery issues across Maryland, and I want to be clear. Destruction of cemeteries is not just a problem of the past. It's happening today. We've seen buildings constructed over known burial grounds and human remains removed without dignity or notice. This bill provides a practical solution. It clarifies who may bring in action, who carries the burden of proof, and what steps must be followed before any cemetery land can be altered or sold. It creates accountability where none currently exists. As we know, progress is possible. Just a few days ago, the friends and families of the Knoxville African American Cemetery, a nonprofit group in Frederick County, was legally granted title to their cemetery property, only the second time this property has changed hands since 1893. With the right legal framework, communities can protect these sacred places. I urge you to support this bill with an amendment that in a dispute, the court shall pass the final judgment. It brings clarity, fairness, and dignity to the treatment of Maryland's cemeteries and the families connected to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this panel? I don't see any. We now have favorable virtually. We have 4, and we're going to start with Josh Silver.
Good evening. I am Josh Silver, a member of the Bethesda African American Cemetery Coalition and a lifelong resident of Bethesda, Maryland. SB 233 describes clearly which organizations and people of interest can petition a court if they believe a sale, transfer, or alternative use of a cemetery is no longer consistent with the purpose or operation of a cemetery. Who can bring an action? Someone who owns a burial right, a descendant community organization, a nonprofit organization that wants to preserve the cemetery, a governmental unit with an interest in a cemetery, a person of interest that's already in the existing law, related by blood or marriage to a person interred in the burial site, is a domestic partner of a person interred in the burial site, or has a cultural affiliation with the person interred in the burial site. Clearly describing who can bring a case to court is critical because BACC has been litigating for years just to establish standing and a requirement that a judge hear a case. We are defending a cemetery in Bethesda, Maryland that's being desecrated. Testimony in opposition to SB 233, which you will hear shortly, describes a right to go to court as burdensome. I can tell you what is more burdensome. Hundreds of dead bodies underneath a parking lot on River Road as a result of the desecration of Moses African Cemetery. The descendant community must have the right to defend its ancestors. I can tell you what is more. The right to defend yourself in court is a keystone of civil rights laws like the Fair Housing Act. I repeat, the right to defend yourself in court is a keystone of civil rights laws like the Fair Housing Act. Instead of a burden, it has relieved society of injustice and discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we should have Eileen McGuckin. Thank you. Eileen, do you need to unmute? We can't hear you.
You're muted.
I don't see the mute sign, though.
Can you hear me now?
No, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. I'm Eileen McGuckie, and I'm president of Montgomery Preservation, which is the countywide nonprofit that has for decades worked with others to advocate for state laws to improve the situations of all Maryland cemeteries. Almost a decade ago, MPI led a volunteer-driven project to identify.
I'm Eileen McGuckie, and I'm president of Montgomery Preservation, which is the
hearing that?
nonprofit that has for decades worked with others to advocate for state laws to improve the situations of all Maryland cemeteries.
You on another device like your phone or something? It sounds like you have another device in the background.
Eleanor, you need to mute. I'm not on. Eleanor, yes.
That is for decades.
You must mute yourself until it is your turn.
Okay. Now let's try again. Okay.
Do you mind if I start over?
Yeah.
I don't know what that background noise is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'd love to start over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm Eileen McGuckian, president of Montgomery Preservation, which is the countywide nonprofit that for decades has worked with others to advocate for state laws to improve the situations of all Maryland cemeteries. Almost a decade ago, MPI led a volunteer-driven project to identify all known Montgomery County burial sites and to pass 2 local laws to protect and preserve them. Today, our planning board manages the official inventory of about 350 sites with the assistance of a professional archaeologist. In recent years, strides have been made to wrap our arms around these unique historic resources, to study and recommend, and to bring specific problems to the General Assembly as needed. In 2021-22, I served on the committee charged by the House and Senate joint chairman to survey citizens and study historic Black cemeteries. That report recommended a statewide database and a statutory protection when a cemetery is sold or conveyed. Just last month, the work group to study creation of a Maryland cemetery inventory delivered its report to the General Assembly. Not only does this document propose a map-based compilation of all known burial sites, it also suggests data categories and grants to support identification and documentation. We hope you'll support this in the state budget. SB 233 will benefit efforts of all Marylanders who care about specific sites. This proposal describes what should happen when cemeteries are sold, transferred, or the property turned to another use, something that arises more often than you would imagine. SB 233 provides a voice to descendants and others who respect those who came before us. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have Eleanor Thompson.
Eleanor she was in, now she's coming.
Okay. Is she back?
She's in the waiting room. She's the one who is playing the.
Okay. So who's this? Is this Stephanie Hope? Who's on ours?
Hope Metzler.
Okay, Stephanie, would you please start your test?
Chair Beidel and members of the Finance Committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify today, and a hello to David and Tina. My name is Hope Metzler, and I'm the president of the Coalition to Protect Maryland Burial Sites. It's a nationwide, it's a statewide, all-volunteer nonprofit organization that advocates for the protection and preservation of cemeteries across Maryland. Cemeteries are not just parcels of land, of course. They are permanent places of burial, sites of cultural memory, and sacred spaces for families and descendant communities. Yet, across Maryland, we are increasingly seeing cemeteries threatened by development, property transfer, or repurposing, often with little notice and limited opportunity for those most connected to the site. Senate Bill 233 addresses this gap in a thoughtful and balanced way. This bill does not prohibit the sale or transfer of property that includes a cemetery. Instead, it ensures that when such actions are proposed, those with a legitimate interest, family members, descendant community organizations, preservation nonprofits, and government entities have a clear standing to be heard by the court. Importantly, SB 233 places the burden of proof on the property owner proposing the change. It also gives courts flexibility, allowing approval, prohibition, or an alternative disposition that may preserve the cemetery through transfer to a nonprofit or descendant organization willing to care for it. SB 233 recognizes that respect for the dead, cultural affiliation, and community heritage deserve a voice in these decisions. On behalf of our organization and many Marylanders that we represent, I respectfully urge the committee to give the Bill 233 a favorable report with an amendment that the court shall act, and not currently that it says the court may act. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And now we'll, I think, hear from Eleanor. You need to unmute, Eleanor.
Thank you. My name is Eleanor Thompson, one of a genealogist, historian, author, cemetery preservation and a little bit of everything else. I'm in favor of Senate Bill 233 for abandoned and neglected cemeteries in the African American communities. For more than 40-some years, I have been documenting, archiving the cemeteries across the state of Maryland, especially in the Queen Anne's County area, Anne Arundel County, and all across the state of Maryland. It is important that the descendant communities are able to take over some of the abandoned and neglected cemeteries. The African American community has been kind of widely, we don't know about the history, okay? So therefore, our ancestors and generations of people have been accused of abandoning and neglecting their cemeteries. However, that's not the case in a lot of times. We need to make sure that the descendant communities know about the history and heritage of their cemeteries. And we need to make sure that the descendant communities know about all of their history, and we find out about our heritage through shared histories. I'm in support of Bill SB 233 and 234 to support the abandoned and neglected cemeteries. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. So that sounds like it was testimony for both bills, which is fine. Thank you. Do I have any questions for this panel or any of the virtual witnesses? No. Okay. Thank you very much. That ends the hearing on Senate Bill 233. Now we're going to go to Senate Bill 234, and this is business regulation abandoned cemeteries. So it's going to be Senator Salling and Christine, and I guess David too, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Senator John Ray Salling, Senate Bill 234, Business Regulations, Abandoned Cemeteries. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about this bill. This legislation addresses a real and growing pain problem in Maryland, abandoned cemeteries. Across the state, there are burial grounds that are no longer have owners because of corporations dissolved, their churches have closed, or the records were just lost. So these cemeteries often, they fall in despair. They're targeted for vandalism, and they're just forgotten. Maryland does not provide a clear legal framework to place these abandoned cemeteries into responsible hands. As a result, families and neighbors and even the local government are often powerless to act even when they want to protect these sites. We need to do better, and the only way we can do better is making sure that we are responsible and good actors in these serious problems that we do have. Saying that, I want the professionals here to speak on this, and I hope we can get a favorable report on Senate Bill 234. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
She has to go first because I have the small amendment.
Okay. Chairman Midle, members of the committee, my name is Christine Simmons. I'm a resident of Anne Arundel County. I'm here because Maryland has hundreds of small family cemeteries that have effectively been orphaned. These sites hold our history, but when ownership is unclear, they fall into neglect and families lose their connection to the people buried there. Most of these ownership problems are not the result of bad actors, the result of time. Families move away, they die off. Caretakers age and can no longer take care of the grounds. Younger generations may not even know the cemetery exists. On the legal side, the paper trail often breaks down. Deeds may never mention a cemetery, or later deeds may drop them entirely. Developers sometimes leave these parcels unlabeled on plat maps, and ESTAT records remain unchanged for decades, listing long deceased individuals as owners. In many cases, there's simply no living person who knows who is responsible. The result is that the authority to maintain and protect these cemetery grounds is lost. Local governments cannot intervene. even when a cemetery is visibly deteriorating. Families who try to visit or care for these sites often don't know who to contact or whether they're even allowed to be there. This is not just about property, it's about preserving Maryland's cemetery. Every cemetery has a story. We have African American cemetery burials at Annapolis National Cemetery that have 3 generations of the same family. We have a Korean midshipman at the Naval Academy. We have burials of enslaved, lynched, and free blacks in cemeteries. We have watermen. We have astronauts. We have POWs from Germany and Italy. Respect for these people that are buried in the cemeteries need to be given a way for the families to reconnect with those families. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Good evening, Chair Beidel, and Senate Finance Committee members. I'm David Zinner. I'm a consumer member of the Maryland Advisory Council on Cemetery Operations, but I'm not representing either the Department of Labor, the Office of Cemetery Oversight, or the Advisory Council. SB 234 builds on a current rule, and we were shocked to find out that we wanted to do something about abandoned cemeteries, and then we found out that there is actually a rule already that covers it. It didn't cover it enough, but if you look at Court Rule 12204, it talks about acquisition of a cemetery, and the rule lays out the process for condemning a cemetery. It has a number of shortcomings. The essence of SB 234 establishes a process where a nonprofit organization can work with a government unit to rescue a cemetery with no known owner so that the cemetery can be maintained. As it stands now, volunteers can't even care for the grounds of an abandoned cemetery because they need owner permission, and these abandoned cemeteries have no owner that's identifiable. The categories for who can care for the cemetery in the future are intentionally broad. It won't be easy to find a group that will maintain a cemetery that is likely neglected and probably won't be able to take new burials. The challenge for implementing this law will not be a mad rush of nonprofits. The challenge will be identifying a group with dedicated volunteers, the ability to secure grants, and extensive community support. SB 234 references the current definition of governmental unit. Governmental unit means a department, an agency, a commission, a board, a council, or any other body of state government established by law. So there's a lot of potential for different governmental entities to help out with this process. SB 234 gives volunteer groups many avenues to find these governmental partners to develop a plan to save an abandoned cemetery. We ask for your approval of SB 234.
Thank you. So now we're going to hear from Marcia Coleman Adebayo, I think? No?
No, I don't know what's happening. It's like a video, but she's not.
Marcia's not, she's not there. Okay. Let's go to Eleanor Thompson. Okay, she testified on both. Stephanie Hope?
Hello, thank you. Madam Chair and members of the Finance Committee, thank you again for listening to us about cemeteries. Just to remind you, I'm the president of the Coalition to Protect Maryland Burial Sites, and we are, statewide, all volunteer. And I'm here today, of course, for 234. Across our state, there are hundreds, likely thousands of abandoned cemeteries where no legal owner can be identified, no responsible entity exists, and there's no clear pathway is available for the care, protection, or the respectful resolution. These cemeteries often deteriorate not because anyone intends harm, but because the law provides no practical mechanism to intervene. Senate Bill 234 creates that mechanism. This bill allows a governmental unit under defined limited circumstances to acquire property containing an abandoned cemetery, which means ownerless, for the sole purpose of protecting it and transferring it to appropriate stewards. May they be descendants, a descendant community organization, or a nonprofit organization that is willing to preserve it. That is a critical distinction. This authority is not about development or erasure. It is about stabilization, dignity, and long-term care. Equally important, the bill requires good faith efforts to identify and contact descendants and culturally affiliated communities. It centers those most connected to the cemetery and ensures that they have a clear legal path to assume stewardship if they are willing and able. Preservation is most successful when care is placed in the hands of those with a genuine connection to the site, that it is supported rather than blocked by law. In short, Senate Bill 234 addresses a long-standing gap in Maryland law with care, restraint, and respect. It gives communities tools to protect burial grounds that would otherwise continue to be lost through neglect and legal limbo. On behalf of the Coalition to Protect Maryland Burial Sites, I respectfully urge the committee to give Senate Bill 234 a favorable report. I think I was hearing the bell.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, thank
We
you,
have
ma'am.
Eileen McGuckian again.
My first three words, Eileen McGuckian again, on behalf of Montgomery Preservation. I want to request your support for a bill that addresses, as others have said, this long-standing problem of abandoned cemeteries. And we've made it a very high priority, and it describes just too many properties in every part of our state. A common cause of abandonment is unknown ownership. Without proven recorded ownership, it's impossible to be officially recognized, to organize a cleanup, to apply for a grant. This bill includes a mechanism to enable counties and municipalities to take title to an abandoned cemetery and then transfer it to descendants or a nonprofit who agree to preserve and maintain it. This law would enable, not require, governments to assist when there is no owner to deal with. It's a reasonable path for jurisdictions to resolve these problems. Two examples. A graveyard in Washington County was discovered by neighbors who, without ownership, can only go so far. The Friends Group is willing and prepared. Missing is a legal tool for them to become owners. Another is in Montgomery County, where the county executive could only lightly help descendants whose church cemetery was partly paved over by a public road. He supports these bills this year. New England towns are known for taking responsibility for needy sites. Some Maryland towns have assumed ownership and maintenance. Chesterfield Cemetery in Centerville, for example, and Old Berlin Cemetery in Brunswick. New York, South Carolina, and Georgia are three states that authorize governments to act where owners are not known or interested. Maryland jurisdictions need this option also. Thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing with us all this day.
Thank you. Josh Silver.
Good evening, and thanks for having us tonight. As I said before, I'm a member of the Bethesda African American Cemetery. I believe that SB 234 is vital to ensuring that abandoned cemeteries are respected and the deceased can rest in dignity. Under SB 234, a government entity must make timely and reasonable efforts to contact descendants. Descendants may bring an action to the court if the government entity does not act in good faith. We are pleased that SB 234 requires a local jurisdiction to act in good faith. If a local jurisdiction does not, SB 234 appropriately allows a person of interest to bring a case to court. While this is necessary, it is not a sufficient protection. To ensure accountability on the part of the local jurisdiction, the bill must require the courts to render a decision. So we asked for that we asked the bill to be amended to require a court to render a decision. In this manner, a local jurisdiction would have added incentives to act in good faith. An amendment like that would make SB 234 consistent with SB 233 that requires a court to rule. The right for a party to be heard in court is the foundation of several civil rights laws in this country, which have increased equity and justice by empowering disenfranchised communities. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and you'll see more detail in my written testimony about the case of Moses African Cemetery in Bethesda, Maryland, near River Road and West Bard Avenue, that is being desecrated. The county owns, the Housing Opportunities Commission owns part of that cemetery, and the case is now being litigated in court. And the Supreme Court of Maryland has recognized that there's at least 2,000 bodies underneath a parking lot. We must never have this again in this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Eleanor, you're going to, okay.
Thank
You
you.
have
I've
to
been
unmute.
having some computer issues, but I want to talk about some abandoned and neglected cemeteries in Queen Anne's County. In the case of Gould Family Cemetery in Queen Anne's County, Centerville, Maryland, I have worked with a descendant who was a descendant of London Gould. He was a former conductor of the Underground Railroad. He helped to have my family member released from freedom, okay, from slavery. I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous. I'm really nervous. But anyway, a descendant of his by the name of Terry Sorrell wanted to have that family cemetery preserved, documented, and maintained. For many, many years, we went to school together. Unfortunately, she just passed away not too long ago. She wanted that cemetery documented, preserved, and acknowledged through the African American community in Queen Anne's County. Unfortunately, she didn't get a chance to see that. Historical significance with the African American cemeteries is a great value to all of our shared history. That cemetery is part of the Underground Railroad. It's a part of all of our histories and heritage, and we need to make sure that the descendant communities are able to take over some of these cemeteries so we can tell the stories of our rich African American and shared histories. If we don't support this bill, her legacy and her wish for preserving that cemetery will go in vain. 17 years of cancer and try to document her family's history is what she wanted before she passed away last year.
Thank you.
Last
Thank
month.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. I don't see any questions on this bill. This ends the hearing on Senate Bill 234. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is our final bill of the evening, is Senate Bill 248, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, Investments and Alterations, with our chair, Senator Beidel. And I believe there's one panelist.
Thank you very much. For the record, Senator Pam Beidel. Senate Bill 248, Maryland Technology Development. And Troy asked to be last tonight. He had no idea that it was going to be 7:45. So thank you, Troy, for being here. This has absolutely no, it's all favorable. There's no opposition. And it's a very simple bill that was requested by TEDCO. And it's specifically, they need a development of a process for considering and pursuing remedies for investments that no longer meet the definition of qualified businesses. And I'm going to let Troy tell you all the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate your support. Thank you all for staying. I hopefully won't take too much of your time because I know it's been a long day for you all. My name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I serve as the CEO of TEDCO. I think all of you, for those that don't know, TEDCO, we're your early stage tech and life science venture capital arm. So we make investments to make money, and we use those funds to reinvest in what we do. And we invest in Maryland-based companies that have either employment or presence in Maryland. But when companies do exactly what we want them to do, which is to grow, sometimes they grow, and that employment base grows outside of Maryland, or they have a situation outside of Maryland. And when that happens, we have to immediately liquidate our investment. That does three very bad things. One, for the entrepreneur, they have to use those funds for growth to pay us back. Two, for us, we don't get market-based returns for those. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 years, we lost almost $10 million because of this current provision that we have. And those are funds we don't have available to reinvest back into the next wave of startups that come to Maryland. And last is bad for Maryland. It's bad for Maryland because, like I said, because these companies, there are many companies who don't even take TEDCO investments and decide not to start their companies here in Maryland because of provisions. They know they will be limited in what they will be able to do, and because they eventually will have to pay us back. and funds that they want to use for growth. So again, thank you, Chairman Bidle, Senator Bidle, for your support of this bill. We see this as an evolution of TEDCO and what we're doing with TEDCO. So we obviously appreciate your support, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay, that concludes the hearing for Senate Bill 248 and the work before us today.